We are live there. Okay. We made it. Oh, yeah. Hopefully the volume's good. But what can you do? Okay, so. We're live. We're doing some singing bowls to start with. Just getting straight into it. No explanation. You must listen. You must listen.
I thought it would be nice to serenade everybody as they come in.
Okay. Let's do that. If you're watching the recording, feel free to move ahead if you don't want to get the singing bowls. But I mean, the singing bowls are 432 hertz. Blast. Hopefully they're not too loud. You just can't win sometimes, so it's okay. We're winning because we're here and we're live. So, anyways, we'll be doing singing bowls for a couple minutes as everybody comes in, and then we'll get into the content. Sound good?
Sure.
Apparently Jesse can't talk today, so that's fine.
Normal.
So should I commentate while we're chilling, or should I just let you play the singing bowls? What would you prefer?
What would you like to do? Usually when singing bowls are being played, you just listen to them and absorb the energy.
Let me just get that then. I'm absorbing. Integrating.
It never is. Jax loves singing bowls. He can't get enough.
Yep. That's right. Got stuff in your hair. Hey, buddy. Oh no. Oh no no. Oh no. Oh no 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 no. Back it up. Back it up. Okay, sure. You can do that.
He's the star of the show.
He's like, get me in there. Okay. Now this time it's different because the laptop's here and the camera's here. So it's a little bit different. I just like singing bowls. I mean, I think it's a great way to enter in because it's just like beautiful music, you know, that you create yourself. So, but yeah, we're here. We made it. We're here in Sedona for another week. We are here. Welcome, everybody. You're here this time. You're not here. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of this because I got to get used to that because we got the angles over here, okay?
That's right.
So you're looking at the red rocks in the background, and we are here again for the final week of...
Master your energy.
Oh, yeah. All right. We did it. We made it. 4 weeks.
We got the manifesting generator hype man here.
That's right. I mean, it's exciting. I mean, I'm glad we're finally... This is my favorite part of the course, personally, because I really like the body practices, because we actually... One big realization that I came to in the last couple days was really understanding that when we know our human design, it is very helpful. And then the next step is understanding that when we want to reach this stage, you could call it, of enlightenment, that some say, that this must happen through the body, because we came here to do it through the body. So neglecting your actual practices daily is going to be something that might result in imbalances. So that's what we're addressing today, which is the actual body part, which is why we're back further, so we can show you actually how to release these parts in your body. So...
Yeah, and one thing we talk about a lot here at Sacred Yoga is that enlightenment isn't something that you can force. It's not something that you can create. But really, all that we can do is give ourselves the most optimal circumstances and environment for us to happen upon enlightenment. That's something that a lot of the great teachers, great masters talked about, is that, you know, enlightenment isn't really something that we can define, and it's not something that we can get to. It's not a destination, but it's something that we experience when we set ourselves up optimally for that to happen. Or sometimes it even happens spontaneously, but we can't all be like Eckhart Tolle. So that's where these body practices really come into play. And it also just goes right along with the Tantra lineage that we need to basically move through the body in order to transcend the body. And so human design and themes of consciousness are great ways to master your mind, in a sense, to, you know, be able to see patterns of like why things are happening to you, or why you fall into certain themes of consciousness, or why your suffering happens the way that it happens. But the thing that's amazing about body practices is that there isn't anything that we need to necessarily figure out with body practices. It's just a matter of, if there is something to figure out, it's more of like figuring out which ones are going to be the most helpful for you, because there's so many different ones. But the body practices can take us out of our minds, which sometimes can be a barrier to reaching those higher states of consciousness, to reaching enlightenment, if you want to think about it that way, because our mind is very circular and can almost, how do I say this, like take us out of that.
Well, it's just like when you're doing things that you love doing, you don't think about it, you just do it. Like if you're playing, okay, we could be even as simple as just playing like games. You could play sports. It's sports for some people, it's adrenaline for some people, and then for some people it's opening their body to channel. Because if you're in a hard yoga pose, like trying to figure out how to think about it, it's just too much, right? You're so focused on that you actually lose yourself in the practice, which is the spontaneousness of the states that we all would like to reach, of pure bliss and love. So that's what yoga's for, in one respect, at least I think, is to open you up to channel. So we're going to be focusing today on that and a specific technique that we call myofascial release, which is popular in I guess performance for sports, because a lot of people...
That's where it started.
Yes.
You can say.
Right. And so it became popularized by the sports community because there was people that were working really hard and they needed a way to release it. So this is something that we're taking and we're actually applying it in a much different way to actually teach you which part of your body is stuck, where it is stuck, and how you can release it relating to your chakras. So that's really the point of what we're going to be doing in a main portion.
Yeah.
Not the only thing.
Getting a little bit ahead, but that's okay. Thanks for that introduction.
You're welcome.
So I felt called to play singing bowls today. I'm not really sure why. Well, initially I wasn't really sure why. This is actually root chakra and this is heart chakra. And I think the reason why I intuitively grabbed root chakra is because the root chakra is all about grounding into your body and being aware of your physical vessel. And so playing a root chakra singing bowl really helps you anchor into your own body, your own energy. And then I think heart chakra, because that's just the energy that I'm feeling a lot of right now, just collectively. I'm sure pretty much everybody here is aware that yesterday was a really big day, shift into the age of Aquarius. It was the winter solstice. And so for me, this is anytime we're in the winter solstice, it's really about resting, rejuvenating, and releasing. Because I even think about how this is analogous to a woman's menstrual cycle and how in her inner winter phase, she's literally bleeding and releasing everything that was old, basically, in order to have rebirth, the death and rebirth cycle. So right now, if you're feeling really tired, if you're feeling like a lot of things are coming up for you, and if you're just feeling like you're almost shedding like a snake, you're shedding your skin to be reborn, I want you to know that you're not alone. Mm-hmm. We have been going through it too. This is actually like day 5 for me of like some pretty gnarly, I don't know if you want to call them ascension symptoms or whatever you want to call them, but nausea, headache, like crazy dizziness, to the point of I was like, I don't even know for sure if I'm going to be able to teach this course. But miraculously, about 30 minutes ago, I like had this burst of energy. So I think we're
feeling good.
We're feeling good. So,
yes. Brilliant.
And I think that I'm really glad that I was able to teach this today, because these body practices that we're going to talk about, we're going to go through the chakras a little bit and talk about different body practices to do to balance your chakras. And then, of course, the myofascial release is all so important right now in this time, because, like I said, this is a time of release and integration.
Yeah, like imagine you have family wounds stuck in your lower shoulder blade, like I do. Imagine that you can actually release that with these techniques, and maybe that's one thing that's stopping you from being able to release it if it keeps coming up and up, is it's actually in your body. Like the energy is actually there, and so releasing that is pivotal. It's amazing. Feels so good.
And so since we're just kind of talking about fascia right now, I just want to, because you talked about, or Nick was talking about how myofascial release started for sports performance, but really the way, like where I think it really started is with Thomas Myers, who isn't, like he just has studied anatomy his whole life, basically. What he discovered is that traditionally when we study and look at anatomy, we have looked at things in a very segmental, compartmentalized way, such that when we would dissect, cadavers and bodies to learn about anatomy, we would often cut through connective tissue. And what he found is that actually when you don't cut through the connective tissue, you can see that there's this whole network of connective tissue in our bodies called fascia. And fascia is essentially what's holding everything together, because our bodies are 65% water. And our fascia, you can think about it as like, I think of it like it's the riverbed that gives the water a container. So it's basically holding everything in place. And just like a river can shape the riverbed, but the riverbed can also affect the flow of water, it also works both ways in our bodies. So we have 65% water in our bodies, and one of my theories for why we have so much water in our bodies is because water transmits energy and it transmits vibration. It's a conductor. And so if we have all this ability to hold this energy and hold this frequency, then when our when all the water in our body is vibrating at a certain frequency, depending on our theme of consciousness, depending on if we're in alignment with our human design, if we're in our not self or whatever, then those frequencies will also kind of imprint on our fascia, and it'll shape our fascia depending on the way that the water in our bodies is flowing. But similarly, if we get stuck in certain patterns or positions, then that's going to affect the way energy flows in our body as well. Sorry, I don't know why all of a sudden all the bees seem to be attracted to us.
You got like 10 bees. Keep going.
It's the way, just the way it goes sometimes. So the way I think about this is, yes, it's really important to be aware of our energy so that we know how our energy is shaping our body. But then if we use these body practices and this myofascial release, then we can reshape the riverbed so that the energy can flow. So it's kind of like if you can do both things at once, if you can be aware of your energy and be aware of your physical vessel, then why not do both? Why not maximize your efforts towards just being able to function optimally. And so I like to show this too because I find this stuff so fascinating. And even before I discovered fascia, because to be honest with you, fascia isn't even really talked about in physical therapy schools or in like traditional education. Before I was even aware of fascia, I noticed very early on in my career that like everything was connected, and I didn't really have a way of explaining it. Like, for example, I remember when I was in one of my clinical internships, because for physical therapy school, typically the way it works is we do 2 years of like hard study, and then the third year we go on these clinical rotations, so we learn our practical skills. And when I was in my third year, I remember working with this patient, and he was a very high level athlete. He was a tennis player, and he was having difficulty with his right shoulder. And he'd been to a bunch of other physical therapists, and no one could really figure out what was going on with his shoulder, and why when he went to go serve a tennis ball, that was the only time he was having pain, when he was basically getting into his end range. And so my clinical instructor took a look at him, and like the thing that made this particular clinical instructor of mine different from pretty much anybody else I'd worked with is that he would look at the whole entire body. And not just that, but he would look at the whole body, and he would also ask people, what their home environment was like, what was going on with them psychologically. He would ask about hormones, he would ask about nutrition, he would ask about all this stuff. But what really struck me is that he took this tennis athlete through these series of different movements, and what we noticed is that he was having problems with his right shoulder, but his left hip didn't have any ability to rotate. So what was happening was when he was going to serve a tennis ball is he was planting on his left foot, and he was having to, when you serve a tennis ball or when you swing a baseball bat or when you swing a golf club, you have to be able to rotate through your whole body. So he was planting his left leg, and when he went around to rotate, his hip was getting stuck, which was then affecting the entire fascia system from his hip all the way up to his shoulder. And it's such that when he went to reach his shoulder up, his shoulder had to take a tremendous amount of force because his hip wasn't rotating. So we essentially were able to help this person get better by doing hip rotation exercises, which affected the whole fascia system. And I thought I saved it in here. I'm trying to find a picture of it. So here's one picture. I don't know. Nick, you're probably going to have to show this up close to the camera.
Why? What's going on? What are we looking for?
I just want to show them. This kind of shows what I'm talking about. Okay, so through here, you can kind of see how show them how everything's connected.
Oh, the blue?
So yeah, so you can see how the hip is all the way connected, and that's basically what's connecting everything in the body is fascia.
Yeah.
It's the riverbed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's kind of our introduction to fascia. We're going to get into, before we shift and go into myofascial release, we're going to talk about chakras a little bit. I'm not going to go into them to the depth that Matt went into with his workshop, that Matt Nash went into with their workshop about chakras. But I do want to just give kind of an overview of each one and like when we might see trauma in that chakra, and then just different things that we can do to balance them.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you pull that up for me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We got the sun.
Of course, it was like all shady.
I think the bees came out because of the sun.
It was all shady and just, yeah, it was completely cloudy, and now there's like direct sunlight above us.
It's all good.
It's good.
Oh. Oh, ho.
What?
Oh, I'm on the keyboard. Okay, we're good. Okay. There we go.
Okay, so we're screen sharing. Actually, I see that there's some things in the chat. I just want to make sure there's no questions.
And I'm just gonna let y'all know was a prerequisite
It's
to
the heart
this
chakra
to
for
this
today.
week. If there's bees that are, if you see me going straight fruit ninja on these bees, like I don't know what to say because they just are ruthless up here in Sedona. At least when the sun's out, which is wild. But anyways, carry on, mate.
I feel like it's just the ultimate. Right now has been the ultimate test of acceptance for us both, because we, try so hard to make sure things are perfect, and then there's always something, like whether it's bees, whether it's the sun. Anyway, I digress though. Okay, so moving into chakras. So, one thing that I know that we kind of mentioned before is that the chakras are very tied to certain developmental stages. And so the way I think about it, and when I'm working with somebody one-on-one, I like to kind of I like to ask them if there was anything to their memory that they went through that was traumatic in their life, and if they experience any sort of trauma that they can remember, even if it's at a subconscious level, then this is going to affect the way a certain chakra is balanced or not. So,
Got him.
oh my goodness. Okay, so the root chakra, as we talked about in the last workshop with Matt Nash, and for those of you who are not in the Sacred Yoga Institute teacher training and want to know more about chakras in general and how they're tied to psychological development, I cannot recommend the book Eastern Body, Western Mind enough. Eastern Body, Western Mind by Anodea Judith. It is the most comprehensive chakra book I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many just practical applications in that book. And then she has a additional book that goes along with it called, I think it's just called Chakra Yoga or something like that. If you search her, you'll be able to find it. And I actually have some pictures from that book in these PowerPoint slides, because it shows you different yoga asana poses that you can do to balance each one. So plug in that, especially for all my one-line profiles out there who I know want to know where all this information comes from. That's where it comes from. So root chakra really develops in the first year of life. And when I think about the root chakra, it's all about being grounded into your physical body. And so the first year of life, when you look at babies and how they develop, everything is focused on their physical milestones. What do they need to do in order to survive? They need to learn how to move. They need to learn how to roll over. They need to learn some sort of locomotion, especially in the beginning, it's through crawling, but then eventually through walking. They need to learn how to suck, swallow, all of those things in order to make sure that their physical survival needs are met. And what's really interesting to me about this is that Anodea Judith said that this is like really heightened, or the root chakra development is at its peak between ages 4 and 5 months old. And for me as a physical therapist, what's significant about that time period is that around 4 months old, that's when babies learn how to defeat gravity. So the root chakra is all about like starting to separate yourself from the world, knowing that you have a physical vessel. Because when we're born, all that we know is that we're connected to our mother and our parents, and that's how our physical needs are met. And when babies learn how to defeat gravity, then that's when development really starts picking up, because they start realizing that they can actually do things for themselves and that they are their own being, essentially. And so, yeah, so I put in here like the interesting thing about also root chakra development is that everything builds on something else. So, when babies are on their tummy and they're learning how to push themselves up, they're actually learning depth perception. So they're learning visual skills, because they're pushing themselves up and then their heads are hitting the floor, and then they're pushing themselves up and their heads are hitting the floor. And so their eyes are learning how to converge. And so from there, when they develop the vision, then that gives them the ability to be able to see a moving target and roll over to get it. And by rolling over, that gives them glute strength and shoulder strength. And by doing those things, then they get the strength to push themselves up and sit up, because you need glute strength in order to sit up. So the glute strength that a baby gets from being on their tummies and pushing themselves up and rolling over then gives them the ability to sit up. And then from sitting up, that gives them the strength that they need to crawl, and then just keeps going. It all just keeps is building a foundation. That's what the root is all about, is building a foundation for the next thing. And then interestingly, the root chakra is said to be fully developed around 12 months. Now, when I say something's fully developed, what I want you to understand is that this doesn't mean that this doesn't necessarily mean that it's fully integrated yet. Okay, because we can have something that's fully developed in our bodies, but it's not fully, our potential is not fully maximized or integrated in it yet. So you can still have trauma to the root chakra beyond the point that it's quote unquote fully developed. Are you doing okay over here?
I'm great, yes.
Okay. You can have trauma beyond the point that it's fully developed, but this is just basically when you see it maximized. Okay, so interestingly, around 12 months of age, when the root chakra is kind of fully online, this is when babies can maintain independent standing. And they've started to walk yet, but their stepping is still immature, because this is going to mature as we move into the sacral chakra, which is all about movement and fluidity. And so just want to hear from you guys, just knowing this little bit of information. If you had a client who you know is struggling with their root chakra, whether they had trauma as a child, whether you notice that this person just has a really difficult time staying grounded, or maybe they have a one-line profile and they really struggle with, maybe this is a lesson that they're here to learn, is that they're here to build a foundation, but they're maybe having difficulties building a foundation. Just would love to hear from you guys if you want to comment or if you want to jump on video. What would be some things that you could do to help this person?
Right, and that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah.
Of explaining this.
Let me see. Bring up the chat here.
So the point of explaining this is that if you're dealing with clients that have issues in certain areas, then we're going to actually be able to understand where that could have occurred, what ages that could have occurred, and maybe you can spark a memory for that client that will lead them to heal their wounds, because this is just extra information. So that's how we're relating the chakras to actual tangible helping people.
Yeah, and by thinking about what our bodies were doing during that development, you can actually use those different body postures to help. So nobody's feeling inspired right now to share, and that's okay. So some things that came to my mind, would be any posture that facilitates grounding, any posture that facilitates all four limbs on the earth. Because during this phase in our development, pretty much that's what we're doing, is where our bodies are spend a lot of time flat on the ground. But especially I think about cobra pose, or upward dog, where prone, you're on your belly, and you're pressing up, because that is, again, that's when we're learning how to, as babies, defeat gravity, and we're learning that we have our own unique vessel that's separate from the earth. We're pushing up out of the earth, and we're expanding in that way. So anything that, like I said, facilitates that. Balancing postures are great. So things like tree pose, really any sort of balance posture is great for getting grounded and rooted, because also the root chakra is really connected to our physical trunk, or physical roots, if you want to think about it like that. So our legs grounding into the earth. So this is more, for the root chakra, I would do more like static balance poses where they can hold for an extended period of time. We'll kind of move into more movement-based things when we go into the sacral chakra. But that's a lot about what I think about with rebalancing the root chakra. And then, of course, myofascial release, which we're going to go into way in depth later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so moving into the sacral chakra. So this is really interesting. Remember how I said that our visual field starts to develop as our root chakras develop, and we're on our tummies and we're learning to defeat gravity. Our visual perception and our visual field start to come online. The sacral chakra development is said to really start to kick on around 6 months of age. And what is significant about this is that babies learn how to sit up at this time. So we learn how to sit up. Now all of our chakras are in alignment. We're able to make better eye contact with the people who are in our surroundings, and we're able to see things that we want. Because remember, this is all about having desires and having feelings, and learning that our emotional environment, our internal environment, is going to be different from the emotional and sensual environment that somebody else will experience. And this, at this point, is still largely under our volitional control. So we can't control our emotions, especially at this age. We can't even really control our reaction to these emotions, but it's all about learning how to feel them and trust them as they come into our body. And then this is said to, the sacral chakra is said to be fully developed, but again, remember, not yet fully integrated, but fully developed around 2 years, which is when we say that mature walking starts happening. So in the root chakra development, we start taking steps, but it's very shaky because we're still trying to find our ground. And you'll see that babies around 12 months of age, they may have started walking, but it's not yet automatic or smooth or fluid. It's very almost robotic, and it's not efficient. But when the sacral chakra fully develops, this is all also about movement and fluidity, because the sacral chakra is the element of water. So it's about trusting the foundation that you set with the root so that the water can flow through and so that you can move and flow with the natural rhythm of life. So around 2 years of age, this is when we start having really smooth and fluid gait patterns. So you'll notice that 2-year-olds, they don't really have to think so hard anymore about how they're moving and how they're walking, because it starts to become automatic. And actually, walking, when it is developed, it's not cognitive at all. It actually happens at the level of the spinal cord. And so we start, you notice that babies or toddlers at this age are fully learning now how to explore their environment. So they've learned how to crawl, and they're starting to make sense of their inner and their outer world. And so if you know that someone is having maybe experienced trauma to this chakra, either at this phase of development or later, or if maybe you're working with a client, they're a second line profile and they have had a lot of imbalances with their sacral chakra, maybe they've had a lot of guilt, they don't really trust their own emotions, they maybe struggle with, maybe have struggled with addictions or being able to react to their desires. Wondering if anybody has any ideas on how they would help this person balance. I think everybody.
There we go. Okay. What are your ideas?
People are feeling tired today. They want to just relax and listen. And I totally get it, because this is where the energy is today.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would think about first and foremost would be, the other thing that I didn't mention about this is that, around 6 months of age, we learn how to sit up. And then shortly after that, we learn how to crawl. So this may seem kind of silly and trivial, but a lot of people, a lot of parents are told that it's okay if kids skip the crawling phase. And I disagree, because crawling is so important for our not only our hip mobility, but it's also really important for our sacral chakra development. And the reason for this is because when we crawl, we develop this really amazing hip range of motion through the act of crawling, and then we learn how to integrate all of the movement of our body at once, because we are basically having to coordinate our upper body and our lower body at the same time in a rhythmic way. So one thing that I would do for somebody who's struggling with this is I would want to look at, how do their hips move? Are they able to rotate their hips through all 3 planes of motion? And when I say all 3 planes of motion, I mean our bodies move in 3 dimensions. So they move up and down, they move side to side, and they rotate in both ways. So I would want to see, can this person feel into their hips? If they're sitting on their sit bones, can they roll back and forth? Can they find what that feels like? Can they move side to side? And you can tell with some people, when you try to ask them to move into their hips, their whole body will just rock side to side. They won't actually move into their hips, but focusing on, can you feel your hip bones actually rolling inside of your pelvis, as you rock side to side? And then, making little circles and rotations too. Another way that you can do this is, one great way that you can do this, which also integrates the action of crawling, especially if you know for sure if your client wasn't a crawler. I know that's kind of hard to know. I had the luxury of, when I worked with kids, most parents would remember if they crawled or not, but not every adult's going to remember that about themselves, or the parents might not actually remember. But getting them in a hands and knees position, and then having them work on, okay, can they move their hips forward and back? Can they move them side to side? And can they rotate them in that hands and knees position? And this is great because you can cue somebody in a hands and knees position to keep their upper body still. And that's a really big indicator on if they can actually do that motion or not. Because if they are struggling to move through their hips, then you'll see them again. They'll shift their whole body over on their whole upper body, or their shoulders will move like crazy. So I can also demonstrate this to, can you remind me? Demonstrate this when we get set up to do the myofascial release, because I think that's really good. Mm-hmm. Let me pull the PowerPoint back up. I'm going to go through those in a minute. Hip opener poses, so we all know about pigeon pose is a great one for getting into those deep hip rotators, because a lot of times, again, if we have stuck energy in our sacral chakra, we're not able to allow that energy to flow. Our hips won't be able to. Usually rotation is the first thing that'll get lost. So the piriformis and those deep muscles in the hips can be really tight. So things like pigeon pose, things like figure 4 stretch when you're laying on your back, those sorts of things. Also, deep lunge or Anjane asana. I have a picture there for you guys. I'm going to talk about this some more when we get into myofascial release, but the hip flexors are oftentimes the biggest culprit of postural imbalances in general, but especially the ability for the hips to move. And the reason for this is because there's a lot of reasons for this. One is that we as a culture, we sit a lot and we sit in chairs a lot. And when you're sitting in a chair, what's shortening the fastest is going to be your hip flexors, because your hips are going to be in a flexed position. The other reason why, the energetic reason why our hip flexors are tight and short a lot of the time is because for whatever reason, as a species, when we evolved to be bipedal and to walk, all of our really vulnerable internal organs are now on the front of our bodies. So anytime we're experiencing fear, or I would argue anytime we're experiencing any of these lower themes of consciousness like shame or guilt, especially, we have this instinctual tendency to want to protect ourselves like this. And what happens is everything in the front of our bodies, like I catch myself doing this all the time. I don't know about you guys, but we have this instinct to like protect the front of our bodies like this. And what's happening is all the fascia in the front of our bodies, like that picture I showed you guys earlier, is getting short and tight. And then it prevents us from being able to be fully aligned and to be upright, for our chakras to be balanced, and for our diaphragm to be at an optimal length, and all the things. But because the hip flexors are such a big muscle group, and because our hips in a sense are like the powerhouse of our body, our pelvis is like the powerhouse of our body to be able to do the things that we need to do physically, the hip flexors just tend to be really tight. And also, now I'm going on a physical therapy rant with you guys, but a lot of times, and I kind of want to get in a position where I can show this.
What you gonna do?
I'm gonna probably kneel.
Okay, do you need me to move?
I think you're good.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know if they're gonna be able to see
See what?
my pelvis.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're good. So basically what happens is a pelvis is like a bucket, and you have your hip flexors that come up and attach right here on the front of your hip bones.
The mic's right in front of you, just so you know.
Okay, am I too loud?
That's what I'm saying. Just calm it down a little bit.
You guys, I'm so excited that I'm so excited, because I was so tired right before this, and now I'm like jazzed.
You're probably good.
You're good. Okay. So we have your hip flexors that come up the front of your leg here, and they attach on the front of your hip bones. And then you have your hamstrings that basically come up, and wherever your seat bones are, you can feel into them. It's like right in your butt. This is where your hamstrings attach. And so a lot of times people focus so much on stretching their hamstrings because a lot of the times our hamstrings feel tight. And the reason why our hamstrings feel tight is because we have these hip flexors. We actually have these hip flexors who are in the front of our bodies that are tight because we're sitting so much. And what they do is they pull the pelvis this way. So if you think about something stretching from here to here, when it's tight, it's going to pull the pelvis back like this. And now what's happening is now the hamstrings, who are on the other end of this, they get pulled, they get stretched, and they get pulled in return. So it's actually not that. A lot of the times we think, oh my gosh, I just need to stretch my hamstrings because they're so tight. Actually, a lot of the times our hamstrings feel tight because our whole posture has shifted because we sit so much. And if we address this, if we stretch these and we release these with myofascial release, then our pelvis can come back to a neutral position, and our poor hamstrings don't have to be like tight and turned on all the time. So that's my little rant about that. And the reason, again, why I bring this up is because having a balance of hip muscles around our pelvis is going to help us with both our root and our sacral chakra, because every muscle that attaches to our pelvis is going to affect our pelvis's ability to move and glide and to support the movement of the entire body. So hopefully that made sense. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. And then also going along with that, so like I said, anything that attaches to the pelvis is going to affect the ability of the pelvis to move and glide the way that it needs to. And also it's going to affect the ability of the pelvic floor to do its job. So the pelvic floor is this group of muscles that sits literally inside the pelvis, or in the floor of the pelvis, just like the name suggests. And the pelvic floor is something that's also not talked about a whole lot in the fitness industry, and for a long time was not talked about by physical therapists, although this is really rapidly changing. But the pelvic floor is really important for, like, especially the most obvious functions would be like, peeing, pooping, sexual function, all that stuff. But what a lot of people don't know is that it's also really important for breathing. And breathing is pretty much important for everything that we do in life, for regulating our hormones, for moving our prana, moving our life force energy. Obviously, you guys know why breathing is so important. So the interesting thing about the pelvic floor is that a lot of times the pelvic floor itself gets a bad rap of like, it must just be that, my pelvic floor is weak, so I'm just going to do Kegel exercises, or the yogis call it the Mula Bandha. I'm going to contract my Mula Bandha, and I'm just going to contract and hold it, and that's going to get my pelvic floor stronger. But the reality is that if we are not in a postural alignment for the pelvic floor to work optimally, then our pelvic floor muscles could be the strongest pelvic floor muscles in the world, but they still wouldn't be able to function the right way. They still wouldn't be able to basically like hold in, like a lot of times when people are struggling with this, they may have urinary incontinence, they aren't able to like hold in their pee, or they might have like pain in their pelvic floor. So like these things are not going to be able, the pelvic floor is not going to be able to do its job functionally unless everything's in alignment. And I love this picture, it's great for showing this, that, and this is from the book Pelvic Liberation, and I think the author is Leslie Howard. She is a yoga teacher who went through a lot of pelvic floor physical therapy on her own, and she wrote this amazing book. But essentially you can see that we have all these different diaphragms in our body, right? So we have this respiratory diaphragm, which is the one that we know the most about, because this is what we typically think of when we're breathing. Our diaphragm has to be able to relax and contract. But we also have our pelvic diaphragm, which is our pelvic floor. And then we also have our the palate that's in our mouth. And so all of these diaphragms, when we breathe, they have to be able to be stacked on one another, and they have to be in alignment such that when air is coming into our body, that there's an optimal amount of pressure. Because if you think about it, if our posture is off or whatever, and we don't have our rib cage over our pelvis, then when we breathe, air is going to be going in like all these weird places in our body. But if we are in alignment, then it allows for fluidity anytime we take an inhale and exhale. And I also love this picture too, because it shows how like our pelvic floor muscles actually look so much like our vocal cords. And I think about and this is another thing I trip out about a lot, is that, the pelvic floor muscles, which are most closely related to our pelvis, to our sacral chakra, or our pelvic, I should say, our pelvic floor muscles are most closely related to our sacral chakra, and then our vocal cords, of course, are related to our throat chakra, and both of them have this relationship with each other of being in control of our, how we manifest things. The sacral chakra is more about manifesting our internal environment and our internal experience of feelings and emotions and sensuality and all those things. And then our throat chakra is more about manifestation into the outer reality, how we communicate and express ourselves in order to co-create this reality with other people and the universe. So I find it really fascinating that those two are related. And especially with your manifesting generator clients, if you can get them to slow down and to learn how to breathe, you'll do a lot to help them, because manifesting generators specifically, they have basically direct connection from their sacral chakra to their throat chakra. They have a, very distinct relationship between those two. So a lot of times if they're maybe not checking in with themselves and their own internal environment, and they're letting the manifestor side of them run their world, they're not checking in with the generator side of them that has feelings and emotions and has desires for certain things. If they're not slowing down and checking in with their desires and their breathing, then this relationship with the breath will get itself all out of whack. And their pelvic floor and their diaphragm and their throat, that relationship will get kind of out of balance. So if you can, especially if you're manifesting generator clients, if you can get them to slow down and learn how to breathe.
Or if you are one.
If you get yourself to slow down and learn how to breathe and focus on what we call 3-part breathing, which is being able to breathe through your belly and then through your diaphragm and through your rib cage and then feel it all the way up to your throat. If you can learn how to do that, you're going to do so much for your gut health, for your just your ability to manifest, your ability to find balance, all those things, to be centered, all those things. So that, and then also another thing that seems like it's really silly to talk about, but I'm going to talk about our poop for a second.
I'm experiencing this for the first time with you guys. I don't even know, so we're here.
You haven't heard my poop rant before?
What's going on? Just continue with your
Okay, so the first picture shows how, dang, and I forgot to put in a picture that shows like our alignment when we're squatting versus when we're sitting. But one other thing that you can do to help people balance their sacral chakra is to teach them how to poop.
We're getting into we're one-lining right now. Are we?
Are we? I don't know. So the reason why, and you think, okay, this seems like such a silly little thing, but anatomically, when we're squatting, our pelvis and our colon is in a position to void with the least amount of resistance. But one thing that we do in this culture is we sit on the toilet, and we've all done this, and I'm guilty of this too sometimes, is like we find ourselves in this hunched over position, and then we're trying to basically force ourselves to poop. And I think about this from an energetic standpoint. Again, I know this sounds super silly, but from an energetic standpoint, what you can think about it is when you're in that position, you are going against the natural flow of nature. Like if you were to just get yourself in a better position and allow gravity to help you, then you wouldn't be basically putting your pelvic floor through this trauma. So anytime that we're basically trying to like force ourselves to do that, we're going to be basically like harming those pelvic floor muscles, which then is going to be changing the way our fascia is and all those things. So getting yourself in a good alignment when you're sitting on the toilet, really what you want to do is you want to make sure like that your pelvis, you want to make sure that you're not sitting directly on your seat bones. So you want to almost like tilt your pelvis forward a little bit. And to really get optimal alignment, you can do what she does here in this picture where she has 2 yoga blocks under her feet. So she's getting herself basically and sorry, I forgot to put this picture in here, but you can Google it. You can Google like pelvic alignment squatty potty, and it shows you like basically what your colon looks like.
You can use anything. Just get your feet off the ground and get in a solid position.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Right. You don't need to invest in a squatty potty itself. It's just that
get a box.
Squatty potty has a lot of resources on like why it's important and different pictures and things, but
the point is just open the channel better.
Right.
That's
exactly.
That's all we're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the second picture talks about how the pelvic floor for the love of all that is divine, just
I don't know where you're going with this, so I'm here for the ride.
For the love, just goodness gracious.
What?
What?
Okay.
Oh my gosh. So whatever you do, please, please, please do not, when you're working out, do not just hold and contract your pelvic floor. The reason for this is like there was somewhere along the line in the fitness industry, they decided that if basically the way to solve your pelvic floor issues is to just contract your pelvic floor and just hold it there as you're going through different exercises and movements. And this is so just backwards for so many reasons. But the most basic way that you can think about this is like the pelvic floor, it just like any other muscle in the body, is designed to relax and contract. And so if you think about like your bicep, for example, like you wouldn't expect when you're doing different movements, you wouldn't expect like your bicep to just like hold and contract to one position. The same with your pelvic floor. So the best way you can think about this is if you're going through different movements, anytime that you're inhaling, focus on softening those muscles, softening the pelvic floor. And then anytime you're exhaling, your pelvic floor naturally comes back up and contracts. So that's when you can focus on pulling that pelvic floor, pulling that mula bandha up and in. And
it's also important, if you are experiencing, like, what if people don't even know how to contract that? I mean, you just got to understand. For a long time in my life, I was actually contracting without even realizing that I was contracting. Yeah. So, first of all, even realize...
this will happen too, like, if... especially, sorry to interrupt, I don't know if you were going here, but like if you have root chakra trauma, like this will a lot of times will contract like out of like defense. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's what I was gonna say, is that if you're not feeling safe in your environment, if you're not feeling good, even in anything external, if you're still in that stage, which for a long time I was, it's like, because if we look for safety outside of us, it's going to come and go, and it's going to be a really hard life. So for a long time, I would just feel like you feel like this, like down here, you're literally just feeling like this. And then if you just bring awareness to this part of your body, you can actually see that, wow, I'm contracting because I don't feel safe. So you're going to find that a lot of the times, if you're not feeling, if you're feeling like your heart's closed, you might start going like this.
Yes.
You might like try and protect yourself. If somebody's talking some smack about you, let's say, in the most simplistic way, you're going to find yourself doing these things. And there's reasons your heart chakra is actually closing. So what we're saying, or what you're trying to get at least, is basically just open it up. Like if you're feeling like your sacral stuck, do some hip exercises, right? You're going to open this area up. Do a butterfly. If you're not able to bring it down fully, then you might have some stuck energy here. So we're opening up a channel to divine, and we're opening up a channel to master your energy, which is the name of this course, because this is what's going to allow you to fully embody and center yourself in the physical, which is what we want to do, because mentally we can think we're aligned, but is our body actually aligned? Who knows? Your soul is aligned, but we're just trying to catch the body up.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, because also I feel like for a long time talking about pelvic floor muscles was almost like this like dirty or shameful thing, or like nobody's really talking about it. Nobody really talks about the fact that we can have tight muscles down there. And so I think it's really important to bring awareness to this, because this is really it's really, really super common. There was a study done that said that like if you are someone who encounters a lot of stress in your life, that it is more likely for you to have pelvic floor tension than it is for you to have neck tension, which a lot of us will have neck tension. And, as we associate with like, oh, I'm just carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, or, that's a lot of the times where people will feel stressed, but it's even more common to have tension down there. And a lot of times people don't even know that they have tension down there. Mm-hmm. So going back to I think your original question is like, how do you even find those muscles? There's so many different cues. I think the most common cue that people often use is like, pretend like you're stopping the flow of urine. First of all, don't actually stop the flow of urine, because that is not good for your bladder, and it sends a signal from your bladder to your brain to contract those muscles while you're peeing, which is not what we want. We want those muscles to relax while you're peeing.
So just don't
don't actually,
when you're going to the bathroom.
Don't actually stop the flow of pee. I mean, if you do it accidentally, a few times, you're not gonna do anything. But like, yeah. But don't actually do that as like an exercise, is what I'm saying. But that's actually only like one area of the pelvic floor. So you can focus on whether it's stopping the flow of urine, whether it's it sounds kind of silly, but you're trying to hold in gas. So that's a different part of your pelvic floor. That's around your anus. So stopping the flow of urine, holding in gas, and then to get the middle portion of your pelvic floor, for men, I would tell them to visualize their scrotum is pulling up and inward, and for women that their vagina is pulling up and inward. Or another cue that is kind of silly and fun is like pretend like there's a blueberry on the end of your vagina and you're trying to like suck it up into there. Okay. And so to get all three parts, you want to think about stopping the flow of urine, and then just depending on if male or female, pulling in that middle part, and then lastly closing off your anus, or thinking about like you're holding in gas. So then that's going to get basically the whole pelvic lock. And a lot of times it's easier first to learn how to contract before you learn how to relax. So you want to practice like pulling up and in as you exhale, and then taking a deep inhale and almost just visualizing all those muscles melting into butter, as I used to say as a pelvic floor PT.
Well, you can use this in a different way, which is one way we haven't talked about, which is you can get your Kundalini up in the Joe Dispenza way, which is, I'm going to give you a pro tip about him. If you do any of his meditations, specifically his blessing of the energy centers. Okay, so it's literally this. So in that meditation, you're literally learning how to contract and you're breathing in at the same time. So how he would describe it is you're contracting, each center. And that's what you do in there, is you learn how to do that. And when you do that, if you want to have a Kundalini awakening, let's say, then you're going to contract each center and you're going to breathe up like you're breathing through a straw. You're going to breathe up from the bottom and you're going to breathe up through each one of the centers. And so what we're doing now is we're talking about, first you're going to hold your gas in. The second, you're going to contract your privates in. And then the third, you're going to contract your stomach. You're going to contract your stomach in. And then the fourth, it's just you're bringing it all the way up and through. And then you bring it up to your crown, and that's the liberation. So if you want to even take that perspective, is that first we're teaching you how to relax, and then also how to contract so that you can be open, right? This is all about being open, right? And opening yourself.
Right.
So there's different ways to go about that.
Okay. Oh my gosh, it's so bright I can't see.
Sunny.
So sunny. Okay, so we talked about this. This is just a picture from the Anatomy Trains book, just showing you guys how everything is connected, so that you can see that if your hips are tight, or if you're holding a lot of tension there, how can it can affect your abdomen, your diaphragm, even all the way up into your neck. And so I also think, I have this theory too, that that's another reason why they talk about our neck muscles being what they call accessory muscles to our breathing, meaning that we don't actually, if we're breathing efficiently, we don't actually need our neck muscles to help us breathe. But if we're maybe doing a really vigorous workout, or if we're not breathing very efficiently, then our neck muscles will kick in. And this is like actually one of my theories as to why this actually happens, is because you can see that those neck muscles up top are actually connected through fascia down to the diaphragm and those lower pelvic muscles too. Just super fascinating thing that I like to nerd out about. And then just postural, like I can't really stress that enough, because if you think about like our torso is like it's like a canister of air, and if you think about it like a Coke can, that like you have your diaphragm and your throat banda, you have that at the top, and then you have your pelvic floor in the bottom, and then you have your abdominals and your back muscles that wrap all the way around. And in order for the whole system to breathe and allow movement to flow through it, and all those beautiful things, everything needs to be centered. And if just one thing's off, like if our diaphragm is shifted too much this way, or if we have tight hip muscles that are shifting our pelvis maybe to one side or the other, or if we don't know how to hold a correct amount of tension in our abdominals, then like the whole system can be off, and we can be potentially not taking in breath and prana the way that we're meant to. So
Yes,
that's
and
right.
we're going to teach you how to actually...
He's like jumping out of his chair. He's can't help it.
We're actually going to teach you how to do this at the end. Well, not the end, but we're going to actually go through the releases. So if you're like, Nick, how do I do this?
Okay,
Hey,
I know. We appreciate you.
I got you.
Okay. So moving along, this is great. Okay, so moving along to the solar plexus chakra.
So what area are we talking about?
So this is like really, I feel especially right, what I would call, in anatomy, we call this a xiphoid process, which is like the end of your sternum, like right below the sternum and above the belly button.
It says connecting. Oh man, where are we looking at with our connections? How's our Speedify doing? Streaming redundantly. Safe from connection disruption. Where are we at? 103. That was 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock. What's happening? Okay. You know, so if you're watching the recording and this is happening, you might have to skip forward a little bit. Not really sure why this happens. This is 4G. This is on a hotspot. I mean, we have channel bonding, so we're connected through dual hotspots. So do I know why it's not connecting? Absolutely not. But, you know, what can you do? So we're going to get it, but just give us a sec. It says that we're still connected and we're working, so. Yeah, I mean, that says we're good. Do we still have an internet connection? Oh, yeah. Baby. Oh, baby, baby. So if it says connecting, let's just try and connect to something on the computer. I don't know why it's set to Bing, but see, it says we're connected. Did we bring it back? No internet.
That's very weird.
Okay, so what we'll do, you want to just join on your phone? Can you join on your phone?
Let me see.
You know, life is good. I just want to relate to you that life is really good. Okay, we got something. And, you know, sometimes it's just life. And I think we're live again, you know?
Hey guys, if you can hear me, sorry about the connection interruption. We're not really sure.
We are muted. Hold on. There it is. Okay.
Hey guys, sorry about the interruption. We're not really sure why we're not getting...
It just happens, you know? And like I just said, if you're watching the recording, you know, just there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
We're on dual hotspots. We're on AT&T and Verizon.
It's okay, baby. We appreciate your efforts.
I know.
Do.
I'm good. I'm just, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, we're
I'm full surrender.
We have no idea why this is happening, but it's all
good.
We're
back. We're live.
Okay, so...
And if the camera goes out, it's because the sun's out and I got an extra battery, so.
Yeah, so we got backups. We've got all the backups. So, okay, so moving into the solar plexus chakra. So this is, as I was talking about right before the connection got lost, this is going to be right underneath where your sternum ends, basically. And I definitely feel this right here, like anytime, this is like your center for willpower. So anybody who's like comes from a family of, you know, strong, like maybe courage, and now I'm just having all sorts of brain.
It's okay. Just realize that each center that we're mentioning,
yeah.
When you start to actually tune in, you can feel every center. So you're going to know when you're off-centered because you can feel in this area. So just imagine how I would describe it is we're talking right below where your ribs start.
Yeah.
That's where it is for me. And I can, when I'm feeling certain type of ways. So when would you feel out of balance with it?
I feel this one a lot when I'm in the theme of consciousness of courage, like, oh, like I just got to do this because it's my honor, my duty. And like for me, for a lot of my life, I was conditioned into thinking that like my productivity or that my self-worth was a direct result of my productivity. So I pushed a lot of energy and willpower from my solar plexus for a long time, which caused me to be very like solar plexus excessive for a long time of like, I would like literally exercise
Willpower,
for like
just getting it.
2 to 3 hours a day. Like I was training for all these different races that I was running. I was getting straight A's in school. Like I was just very I was very driven. Because my family, like if you meet them, they're very like solar plexus excessive. Like when you say it's like life is all about just like how much you can do and what you can do to serve your family.
There's no being.
There's no being. It's like we're doing all the time.
So if you're burnt out.
So I was excessive in this chakra for a really long time until I just totally burnt myself out and was almost like solar plexus deficient for a long time. And now I'm finding this balance of finding like a healthy amount of discipline while still allowing myself to rest and
being and doing
and rejuvenate. Yes. So this can become out of balance in anyone who's I feel like especially anyone like me who in human design has an open or undefined heart center, because we don't always see our own worth. So we're trying to like prove ourselves.
That's right.
And like literally had a inner work session this morning about this very thing.
That's right.
So especially in your clients, or if you have an open or undefined heart center, this is like it's common for them to have their solar plexus chakra kind of out of balance. So this is related to, or this develops rather, around 18 months to 4 years of age, and super fascinating from a developmental point of view, because this is when kids not only around 18 months old, kids are not only walking or crawling, now they're learning how to move in all 3 planes of motion. So they're integrating their movement, they're experimenting, they're alchemizing, they're building things, they're climbing on things, they're not just walking forward, now they're walking sideways, they're learning how to walk backwards, they're learning how to crawl under things and climb over things and all the things. So this is when we start to use power to initiate exploration. Like I said, we progress from pure linear movement into varied movements of exploration. These are some other examples of what kids do. They start to learn how to jump off things, push, pull, kick a ball, whatever. Around the age of 4, this is when kids start to fully have integration of like all 3-dimensional movement and how to explore a 3-dimensional environment. So around this age, we see like mature running, which is power, jumping, which is also power, galloping, hopping, all of those sorts of things. So for somebody who needs to really heal and balance this chakra, you can take a look at especially if they're like excessive in the chakra, like me for a long time, not knowing when enough is enough, which is also common if you're a projector, a reflector especially, or even a manifester. If you have an open sacral center in human design, we tend to not know when enough is enough. We tend to push ourselves too far. So if someone is excessive in their solar plexus chakra, then this is someone who may need to like literally learn how to sit with their energy and rest in it. Whereas if someone's deficient in their solar plexus chakra, like for me, lately I've been feeling deficient in this chakra. What can help is like literally like power moves, like power yoga, doing like high intensity exercise or something that's going to get the heart rate up a little bit will help ignite the fire in the chakra a little bit more. Some other things that you can do is breath of fire is amazing for this one. Also learning your abdominal lock, because your abdominals are actually what cultivate power. And so for a lot of us, we are very excessive in our what's called our rectus abdominal muscles and our oblique muscles. And these muscles, so our rectus abdominals is like our six-pack muscles, and then our obliques are what connect in at the sides. And these muscles are more geared towards movement our ability to twist, our ability to sit up, the act of doing a sit-up sort of thing, the act of getting out of bed and sitting up, versus the muscles that are actually designed to hold us posturally are what's called our transverse abdominals. And the reason why I bring this up is because through, again, I know we keep talking about posture, but through postural imbalances, because when we're in our not self and when we're feeling shame, we're like this. We are cutting off our transverse abdominals' ability to do their job. And that's why we're actually relying on our six-pack muscles, is because our six-pack muscles kick on when we're in this position. So retraining yourself to actually engage those muscles can help us feel a sense of power and basically maintain an upright posture. And it's really fascinating because there's been a lot of studies on power postures and their effect on not only our psychology but the hormones in our body. There was this TED Talk that I watched like 10 years ago that became like it like completely changed my life, and I still think about it whenever I'm doing something that's taking a lot of willpower, or something that I'm maybe scared to do, or something that's kind of new and out of my comfort zone. So in this experiment, what they did was they had people who were interviewing for a job. They had two different groups. They had one group basically sit on their phones and do what most people do, like sit in a hunch over position and like assume basically these postures of weakness, of defeat, of shame. Like, this is the posture that we're in when we're feeling those things. And then they had the other group do these power postures where they basically created space. They had them stand, they had them put their arms out. They had them in these positions of power. And the people who were in the power posture group, they not only were, I think it said 9 times more likely to get the hypothetical job, and the people who were interviewing them were blinded. But they were not only more likely to get the job, but they also had higher testosterone, lower cortisol, and higher endorphins. So basically what that means is like your testosterone is like your power. So they had higher testosterone, cortisol is your stress hormone, so they had lower stress hormones, and then they had higher endorphins, which is like your happy hormone. So really fascinating to think about. So to engage your transverse abdominals, it's actually easier to do when you have your arms over your head. So a lot of times I will take a strap like this, and I'll usually do this standing, but I'll have my arms up like this. You don't really want to have your hands really close together because for most people, but for me especially, you can see that like I have tight lats right here. So if I have my hands close together, it prevents me from being able to have my hands over my shoulders and my shoulders over my hips, and so forth. So having my arms in this position, and then what you want to think about is you want to think about pulling your belly button just gently up and in and holding it there. And you want to play with this a little bit because you don't want to hold so much that you can't breathe. You want to just lightly contract at it only takes about a 20% contraction. You want to hold it at about 20% in a good position where you can still breathe. And that's how you know you're getting your transverse abdominals. Basically, if you're holding so tightly that you can't breathe, or if you're just like contracting as hard as you can, you're no longer getting your transverse abdominals, you're getting your other abdominals. So that is really good for, like I said, just cultivating your inner power and your endurance for these muscles to hold you in this position of power.
Yeah, and just ask yourself right now, where are you at? Like, where are you here? I kind of think of it as like even in the kind of the silly, as you would say.
Silly.
Just like just feeling good. You're just feeling good. Like you're just feeling like you're a superhero because low key you are, but you just don't realize it yet. So you're up here. You're just bringing it up a little bit. Like you actually have control of your reality, and then you're just showing your body, like you're feeling it in your body, and you're just checking over and over, where am I? I'm up here. I'm in that power position because you are powerful. It's just up to you to send that signal until you retrain your subconscious mind to actually just be there normally. And then you won't even have to think about it. You'll just be like, I mean, you're not going to be like, yeah, you know, but you're just going to, you know, sit upright more. You're not worried about what other people think in that way.
So Sana asked a really interesting question, is you would probably feel it for anger too, for any limiting theme that affects it. And sorry that I didn't see this earlier, Sana. I'm assuming that you're talking about when we talked about like positions of weakness, or like when you're holding it here. And the interesting thing I would say about like specifically anger and pride is that these are limiting themes that I would almost say would be like over contracting. Like in like the lower themes like apathy, shame, guilt, like you're kind of just you're kind of like in this fetal position, or your body has a tendency to be in this fetal position, but there's like very little muscle tone. You're just like you know, like defeated. Versus like anger and pride will be, it's like you're kind of here, but you're like like you're really, really tense. And so, yes, you're still kind of hunched over, but now, in addition to being hunched over, you're like also tense at the same time. Because if you think about, like, I think about the positions that I'm literally in when I'm feeling these things. And like when I'm angry, it's like you make a fist and yeah, you just tend to be there. So,
well, for me,
that's another thing that you think about.
I think it's different for everybody. For me, when I'm angry, I'm out. I'm in that power position because I'm changing, right? Anger is change in a way. And so when I'm in anger or pride, I'm out.
Yeah, but you're not officially using your energy. Like you're out, but you're like
not all the time. That's the lower expression of anger. But in the higher expression of anger, it's a good thing.
Yeah. But I would say in general, people who are like chronically in these stages are like
in the shadow side of anger.
In the shadow side of anger, you're trying to like really force things, so you're not using your energy effectively. So these are the people again who have turned off their postural muscles, like their transverse abdominis, and like the muscles that are going to allow you to have the path of least resistance, and they're using like all of the, basically they're trying to use everything at once, and they're not going along with the flow of things. They're just,
well, that's what anger does. Anger tries to control.
Right.
You know.
Exactly, because it's not until you get to courage that you are able to cultivate true power. Before that, you're trying to force things to go your way. You're trying to get energy through force, essentially.
Power versus force, right?
Mm-hmm.
You enter power when? When do you enter power?
Courage.
Okay.
Yeah, at the level of courage.
That's what you're saying. That's why it's called power versus force.
Yeah, because that's when you enter the level of courage. That's when you're able to take responsibility for yourself, and you can't cultivate true power until you take responsibility for yourself. Because before that point, you're just victimizing yourself, and you're putting the blame on everybody else for why you can or can't do something. So it's not until you get to courage that you can truly like feel that. And for those of you who maybe don't know what I'm talking about, if you're new to following me, or if you're not in the yoga teacher training, check out Matt Nash's book, The Inner Workbook. Like hands down the best way to learn about the themes if you're new. And then you can also check out Dr. Hawkins. He's the one who kind of pioneered this study of consciousness and put the names to all the different themes, or he called it the scale of consciousness. But you could check out, like, his first book was literally called Power versus Force. And then the book that we have right now that we're diving into that's really good is Transcending the Levels of Consciousness. And it's really fun to be here in Sedona reading these books because he literally lived here. So his energy is all over the place. So, so getting back into solar plexus, other really good ways to kind of integrate the solar plexus is to do poses and asanas and different body movements that are going to incorporate all three planes of motion. And what I mean by that is, like, anytime in yoga, if you're doing a twist, or if you're incorporating, how do I explain this? Like let's say you're in a pose where, like, your hips are bending, but your upper body is twisting. That's going to incorporate all three planes because your body, it moves up and down, it moves side to side, and it twists. So anytime that you're doing something that's not just like an up and down pose or a forward back pose, or it's not just a side to side pose, but things that are incorporating twists and multiple things at once, that's going to be also a great way to integrate. Okay, Nick wants to show you the books.
Oh yeah, and also my insight on that, and if Matt and Ash want to comment.
They're not in here right now. I just saw their email.
Well, either way, it's really important to understand that when you're not forcing. Okay, so power versus force. This concept even applies to even releasing.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think the first three chakras are about you're trying to get power, or you think you don't have enough power.
Yeah.
You know, but true power doesn't come until you enter the heart.
Yeah.
Because that's where your true power is. So, anyways, this is the inner work book, and then another book that I would recommend if you're, let's just say, one line or somebody who's scientific, then I would read. I don't know if you can see that. Transcending the Themes of Consciousness was massive in my understanding, by Dr. Hawkins himself. And so, anyways, those are just the two recommendations.
Yeah.
For understanding the themes.
Also, I just want to show you guys something real quick that integrates all three. The root, the sacral, and the solar plexus really well. I'm going to get back here.
What you doing?
What?
What you doing?
I'm about to stand up. Is that okay?
Stand up! Sure, boss.
I don't know if I'll be able to see.
Oh, we can see you.
Okay, good.
Especially if I do this.
Okay, buddy.
Whoa! What's going on here? Do you want the yoga mat?
This is what happens is we have a plan, and then I get into the flow and I just abandon the plans.
All right, so you're gonna be back there.
Yes, I'm gonna be back here for now.
Okay.
Max, literally has to be the star of the show all the time.
Okay, you're max volume. So.
Okay.
You don't gotta yell. You should be fine.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So remember, root chakra is all about being rooted and grounded and balanced. So anytime that you assume a balanced posture, you're going to be basically helping to integrate the root. And then with the sacral, you are basically moving on that foundation and that balance that you gained with the root chakra. So any balancing posture that incorporates movement on top of it, or as we call it in physical therapy, a dynamic balancing exercise, that's going to basically integrate the root and the sacral together. And then if you want to get really fancy and you have your arms over your head and you have your abdominal lock, and you're pulling your belly button up and in.
Do you mean contracted?
Your posture's fully aligned here. Now we're going to be integrating all three. So what I do to work with all these three lower chakras at once, which for a lot of us, especially kind of in the spiritual community, we tend to be like really up in our higher chakras and in need of some balancing in the lower ones. So I take a yoga strap, I bring my arms up overhead. I'm contracting my transverse abdominals with pulling my belly button up and in about 20%. And then I'm standing on one foot, and it's important in this position to basically make sure that your hips are relatively in alignment. So you don't want to dump down like this, but you want to think about bringing your hip points in alignment with each other. So then from here, we're going to add, like I was saying, the 3 planes of motion.
Your foot's up.
To integrate. Yeah, my foot is up right here. I don't know if you can see. You see my feet?
I can see your feet. Jax's head is just right there.
Okay. Can you move him?
Come on down, brother.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it forward and backward. So right now I'm grounded into my left leg. I have my right leg. I'm going to tap it forward. And as I tap it forward, I'm allowing my arms to reach back, whatever feels natural to me. So I'm not forcing myself into a back bend, but I'm just allowing myself to naturally counterbalance. So I'm tapping my foot forward, and then I'm reaching back, and I'm tapping my foot back.
So forward and back?
Just nice and with control. So you want to find that balance between, like, you want to be fluid with this, so you don't want to be too slow, but you also don't want to be just, like, out of control either. So you're here, forward, back.
And what are we doing with this? What's this
So-
going to benefit us?
This is balancing all 3 of the lower chakras. Okay? And
So
then,
why is it balancing again?
What?
Why is it balancing again?
I already explained it.
Okay.
Okay. So then, so you go forward and backwards. I like to do 10, like between 10 and 20. And then we're going to go side to side because we're doing all 3 planes. So you're going to tap your foot to the side, come back up. And again, I'm allowing my upper body to naturally counterbalance. So my upper body's going opposite direction. Here. Okay. And do that one about 10 to 20 times. And then you guys are going to see everybody has one plane of motion that is like their weakness, and mine is rotation. So you're probably going to see me
You gonna fall or
lose
something?
my balance. Going to rotate, and for the rotation one, your upper body is rotating the same direction. Is the only one where your upper body is moving the same direction as your foot. So you're going to rotate here. Tap. Oh, okay, I'm doing pretty good. It's a different story when I'm barefoot, though. And by the way, to get maximal grounding, you'd ideally want to do this barefoot.
There's just a lot of rocks.
But there's a lot of rocks, and it's kind of cold, so wearing my boots here.
Solid.
Okay, and then to quickly recap, the reason why it's balancing all 3 is because you are building on your foundation, you're balancing on your roots, so that's root, and then you're incorporating movement, dynamic activity, so that's sacral, because sacral is water, it's fluid, it's building on that foundation that you had in the root, and then it's also balancing the solar plexus chakra for a few reasons. 1, because it's also moving in 3 planes of motion. 2, because you're contracting your abdominals and cultivating that power. And then 3, you are basically having control to move that way without being out of control. Because the solar plexus, when it's balanced, you have the power, but you're not out of control. Like, you're disciplined. So that's why it's balancing all 3. So hopefully that makes sense. Jax, buddy, you're going to have to move.
Up. Come on.
He literally is like,
Back up.
he is such a camera dog.
Go.
Okay.
Good boy.
All right, we're back.
Let me turn you down again. I think we were at 9. Okay. There
Okay.
we are. All right. Actually, wait. Okay, we're
What's
good.
up?
We're
Okay.
good.
Okay. So moving into the heart. So the heart is all about giving and receiving. And interestingly, when you observe children, 3-year-olds are usually not super interested in playing with other kids. They're usually a lot more focused on what they're doing and their own exploration, and they might play next to another kid, but they're not really yet fully motivated to connect with people. But then when you see a child who's moving into their heart chakra development phase, you'll notice that they'll start now having more of an interest in playing with other kids their age and giving and receiving, and they'll start to be more aware of how they show love to those around them, especially moving away from just connecting with their parents and connecting with everybody who's around them. And so the heart chakra, again, is all about giving and receiving. And so just as we might expect, one of the ways to balance the heart chakra is going to be basically by doing heart openers and opening up the chest. And so anything that we can think of that opens up the chest, puppy pose or downward facing dog, this pose down here, half circle pose, camel pose, anything that has anything that opens up the chest. I like this, like thread the needle is a really great one. And then another one that I really like to do, and I literally did this for like an hour yesterday, is to take a foam roll and to have it like going across my back this way, and to lie down and just kind of like let my back open up over the foam roll. Really good way to open up the chest.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to go with Judith also talks about doing partner poses is a great way to balance the heart.
The double arch.
Is a great way to balance the heart chakra.
We've never even...
Yeah,
Wow.
we've never done partner yoga, but that's another great way to balance the heart chakra.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, I also forgot to mention too, another interesting thing is that one of the major motor milestones for during this phase is throwing and catching, which I think is like directly analogous to giving and receiving.
Mm-hmm.
So just quick little side note. I guess that was all I had for that one, but let's see. Is there anything else you can think of for balancing the heart?
Yes. Like opening yourself up. Being humble is like, even just in the sense of, if you really want to heal yourself, if we're talking about even, I don't even know if it's healing, if you really want to balance yourself, being, whether or not people perceive you as right is huge in balancing your heart. So like knowing that everybody will always have their own perspective, and that we all live on the same planet, but we all have different worlds, and we're all not going to see things the same way, but knowing that it's okay is one of the best ways to open up your heart, because then you realize it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, because you know that if you, as long as you're in love, if you're in your heart and you're speaking from your heart, then it doesn't matter how they receive it, you know, because you're doing the best you can. And so as long as you go through your life even just understanding that, and even just relaying that to yourself as you're always doing the best you can, then you'll feel a lot better and more balanced in who you are, because it's not going to be defined by outside of you what's happening. It's going to be defined by how you define it. And if you're defining that by speaking from your heart, living from your heart, then there's nothing to worry about, because whatever happens outside of you is just going to reflect your heart being open, and you can't really lose.
And the heart is also, I think of it like a bridge too. So it's the bridge between the physical and the spiritual. And so really, as far as body practices go, heart openers are great, but it also is really important if you're having a lot of the times if you're having heart chakra imbalance, there's going to be some other chakras that are out of balance too. And so paying attention to, okay, how can I balance my physical needs with my spiritual needs is going to be really important. And also, a lot of the times, too, if we have lower chakra imbalances, like we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not taking care of our root and our sacral and our, if we're not taking care of our root, we're not loving ourselves and our physical vessel. If we're not taking care of our sacral chakra and we're not able to express emotions, if we're not taking care of our solar plexus chakra and we're either like not having the self-discipline to take care of ourselves, or we're overexerting ourselves and we're burning ourselves out, then all of this is going to affect the heart. So the heart is really about balance and equilibrium. So next up is the throat chakra. So this develops between the ages of 7 and 12. This is also, like, I would say for most manifestors or manifesting generators in human design, they will almost always have either a really excessive throat chakra, meaning that they're like speaking might be one of their strengths, or they're like really used to expressing themselves, or they might, I've seen this go both ways. Like my brother, he's a manifesting generator, and ironically, in this phase where the throat chakra develops, he developed what's called selective mutism. And I believe that he experienced this because he has a direct connection from his emotional center to his throat. And this was a vulnerable time for him where our parents were getting divorced, and he didn't really know how to express his emotions. And so this directly affected his ability to speak. And a lot of times what selective mutism, it can manifest in a lot of different ways, but for him, he was only able to speak in front of my mom and I. He could interact with other people. He would laugh, he would make eye contact, he would make like hand motions, but when it came to him like physically being able to speak and express himself, he was not he was not able to. And when he describes the phenomenon, like he was able to overcome it, and he's totally fine now. But when he talks about it, today, about what the experience felt like, he'll often say that he would want to speak, but it was as though something was blocking him or preventing him from speaking. So a lot of times this is one, like a really important one to look at for your manifesting generator and manifestor clients, because they can either like exert so much energy through their throat chakra that they can burn themselves out, or they may encounter something in their life where they, like some sort of trauma or whatever, that directly affects their voice. So this really develops between the ages of 7 and 12, and this is all, like Anodea Judith talks about this. This is when, kids are really not just focused on connecting to people, but they want to resonate with people. They want to have their own unique voice and self-expression. They want to figure out, okay, now I've figured out how to, like, I'm starting to figure out how to give and receive in the world, but like now I'm trying to figure out what is my unique role here. So let me just, okay, so the way to balance the throat chakra is anything that's going to incorporate twists. And this is because anytime that we're in a twist in yoga or in any other movement, this helps our metabolism, which is also directly related to our thyroid and our parathyroid, which is around our throat. So that's why twists are really important. Seated yoga mudra. So this is when, I don't know if I put a picture in here or not. So this is when we're seated and you take your hands behind your back and you pull your shoulder blades back, and then you allow your throat to open up. Just allows the throat to open up. And then also a bridge pose. So especially if you're in a bridge. So this is when you're on your back and your feet are flat and you push your hips up. But especially if you have your hands underneath of you. I kind of want to demonstrate this.
Sure.
So.
Do you need me to move?
Yeah.
Come on, brother. Up. Come on. Me and you too. Oh, okay.
Okay, so especially if you're lying on your back like this, have the sun directly in my face, and you push up and you have your hands underneath you, and if you want to lock your hands and just secure your shoulder blades underneath you, that's really going to help your throat open up. And then any sort of mantras or chanting. And again, the throat chakra is all about resonance. It's all about your energetic body and the frequency or the vibration that you're giving off. And so if any of your other chakras are out of balance, this will manifest in the way your energy expresses itself through your throat. So a great way to balance your throat chakra is by chanting and focusing on each chakra as you're chanting. So the first chakra, the root chakra, the sound that's associated with it is Lam. So you can chant, you can go through each chakra. So the root is Lam, the sacral chakra is Vam, the solar plexus is Ram. So you can meditate and chant and focus on your energy moving all the way up. Lam, Vam, Ram, and so on and so forth.
You can use a bowl.
And that's exactly what I was going to talk about next. And then the other way that you can, the other great way that you can balance your throat chakra is through playing singing bowls. And so this goes to, again, if any of your other chakras are out of balance, playing a singing bowl will help balance that chakra, but it'll also help balance your throat chakra, because your throat chakra is where that vibration is coming out. So we have singing bowls for each chakra. But even if you just, if you only have basically the money to invest in one, you can kind of like pick out which chakra is your most vulnerable chakra or whatever. And even just having one singing bowl that you can play every day is really, really helpful. And then again, posture and alignment, because as we were talking about before, the way that the pelvis and the throat are aligned over each other is going to affect how we breathe and how our energy expresses. And then this is, yes, that's the seated yoga mudra that we talked about. And then another one that can be helpful, other ways that you can kind of release some throat chakra energy is through neck stretches. And I like to do this with a strap. And so what I do is I'll sit a lot of times cross-legged. I'm going to face the camera this way. So I'll have the strap, I'll sit on it on my opposite hip. So I'm going to be stretching the right side of my neck, but I'll sit on the strap with my left hip here. And then I'll use the strap and I'll basically put it over top of my shoulder to keep my shoulder blade anchored. And then what I'll do is there's 3 different ways that I focus on. So one is bringing my ear directly down towards my shoulder. That's going to stretch my upper trap muscle. This is typically a really common culprit of tension that we hold in our neck and shoulders, especially if we're not breathing properly. So a lot of times I'll hold this for 30 seconds and I'll breathe, take 5 or 6 really deep breaths. And then I'm going to move on and do what's called my levator scap. So this is I call this nose to armpit. So bring my nose down to my armpit. So you'll feel this, you should feel this in a slightly different place. I feel this more along the back side of my neck. And then again, same thing, I'll hold it when I'm really trying to stretch, I'll hold it for about 30 seconds. And then the last one, I used to call this with my patients stargazing. So for this one, you're going to basically roll your head up at an angle. So you're not going directly back, but you're not going directly to the side. You're going a little bit at a diagonal, just like you were looking up at the stars. And this one gets your scalenes, and I feel this one more, you're going to feel it more in the front. So just another tool that you can have. Okay, so cruising right along here. So now we're moving into the third eye chakra. So third eye chakra really develops during adolescence. So this is when the frontal lobe of our brain is starting to develop. We're starting to have discernment. We're starting to be able to see patterns. We're really gaining our full visual abilities and our ability to, not just express ourselves, but also to really start to see what our archetype is and what our role is in the world. And so a great way to balance the third eye chakra is also any sort of balance exercise, because vision is 1/3 of our balance. So anytime that we're in a challenging posture that basically requires us to use our eye gaze, or what we call in yoga, we call it drishti, that's going to be helping us balance our third eye chakra. And then also what Deo Judith calls yoga eye exercises. So this is where you're in kind of a meditative posture position, and you're just slowly focusing your gaze, and you're going up and down. I'm not going to actually do it because the sun is right there up in my face, but she talks about just slowly moving your gaze up and down 5 to 10 times, slowly going side to side 5 to 10 times, and then taking your gaze from top right corner down to bottom left corner, up and down this way, and then same thing on the other side, up and down, and then circles in both directions. And it doesn't have to be in any particular order, but just basically helping your eyes to move in all the directions. Okay, and then getting to the crown chakra. So the crown chakra is our chakra for all knowing, all is divine, universal oneness. It's basically our connection straight up to source. And this is where everything that was in all of the lower 6 chakras is fully integrated, and we are made aware of our divine presence and of our connection to everything. And so for me, basically connecting with the crown chakra or balancing the crown chakra, you really, in order for this to be balanced, pretty much everything else has to be balanced. But other ways that you can balance this one by itself, I really like to do inversions. So even something as simple as a forward fold that gets you to see the world from a different perspective and also brings energy and prana and blood flow to your head, to your crown, will help you connect with your crown chakra. And then literally like any type of pranayama, any type of breathing exercise that's going to help you move prana up to your crown, especially Kapalabhati breathing, Bhastrika breathing, alternate nostril breathing, 3-part breathing. Really anything is going to help connect with the crown. You guys, it's really, really wild how different I feel when Nick is sitting right next to me. It's absolutely wild. Like, I literally feel the difference in my throat.
Why?
Like, the second you left, my throat got raspy, and I feel like it became more difficult to formulate words.
Do you want me back in the scene, laddie?
It's okay, because I think really soon we're going to transition into myofascial release. So, yeah. So, okay. So I wanted to just talk about, I wanted to go back to this slide from week 1. So just kind of tying everything together, I want to show you guys how, you can use these, everything that you just learned in a practical way, so that when you have real life clients, you can look at their chakras, you can look at their themes of consciousness, you can look at their human design, and you can kind of start to tease out what types of modalities are going to be good or going to be most helpful and beneficial for these clients. So, let me see. So I have an example here of like a hypothetical client. So imagine that you have a client who has struggled with maybe fear and anxiety for years, and like she's coming to you because she wants to really work on, working through this anxiety. She also complains of gut issues and fatigue. She's someone who has like a really strong sense of willpower and self-discipline, but has difficulties with organization and finances. When I think of this hypothetical client, I'm thinking of actually someone I know in real life who's like, she's extremely athletic and very muscular, and when it comes to working out and exercising, she's got a lot of willpower, and she's kind of the person who like will muscle through anything. But when it comes to like getting herself organized, she's kind of like all over the place. So also imagine that this person has been asked to take on new responsibilities at her job, which excite her. But then later, when it comes time to actually execute on these plans or these new responsibilities, she has a lot of anxiety and fear around it, and maybe even some stomach pains. And she also struggles with feeling like she's unqualified because she perceives that she has less education than other people in similar positions. So imagine that you are working with this person, and then upon looking at her human design chart, you see that she's a 1-3 manifesting generator with emotional authority, completely open heart and spleen centers, and she is also single definition. And we actually didn't talk about single definition. We haven't talked about that yet. So just real briefly, because I think this is really important. When you're looking at somebody's human design chart, a lot of times it'll say either single definition, split definition, triple split, quadruple split, or if you're a reflector, it'll say no definition. And so basically the most important thing for you to know about this is that if you are someone who has single definition in human design, this basically means that all of your energy centers that are defined are going to be connected to each other through channels. So, like imagine that somebody has a defined solar plexus center, they have a defined root, and then they have a defined spleen, and all 3 of those are directly connected to each other. That person would be what's called single definition. And this is important to know because people who are single definition tend to need a lot of time alone to process through their emotions, through their own themes of consciousness, basically just to have clarity about what's going on with them. They need a lot of alone time. Because when you think about it, all of their available energy is in a sense connected and communicating with each other. So they don't really need other people to necessarily arrive to clarity about things. Versus if somebody is split, triple split, or quadruple split definition, basically what this means is that they will have defined energy centers, but not all of them are going to be connected to each other. So it's like they have these different groups of energy. And it's really fascinating. I've even had clients describe this to me as they feel like there's different parts of themselves that are competing for attention. And so, for example, you can have someone who will have maybe defined head and ajna center. So those top two triangles might be colored in. And then they might also have a defined, maybe a connection from their spleen to their G center. But these two right here are not connected to these two. And what that will mean for that person is that they actually, a lot of times, will do better when they're trying to process through emotions. They will actually do better around other people who can kind of fill in their energetic gaps. And this is really important because a lot of times we're conditioned to believe that we can easily be conditioned one way or the other. Like, for example, I am single definition, so I need to be alone to process through things. My mom is split definition, and one thing that I'd overcome some conditioning around is she would almost like, when I couldn't express my emotions with her, she would almost like try to make me feel guilty about that, or she would take it personally that I didn't want to work through that stuff with her. But I've also worked with a lot of clients who are split or triple split or quadruple split, who will also feel guilty about feeling like they need people to process through their emotions. Because, in this society, we're taught that, we need to be independent. We need to work through, we need to be able to work through our own stuff. But that's not true for split definition people. They, a lot of time, will do better, even if they're just in the energy of other people. If you're a reflector, just know that you're going to feel different. You're going to feel different just depending on what's going on around you. So sometimes you're going to feel more like a single definition person. You're going to feel like you need a long time to process. And there's going to be other times where you feel more like a split definition person, where you need other people to process. So it just kind of, with reflectors, because they're taking in so much from their environment, it's just going to change depending on where you're at. Okay, so going back to our hypothetical client here, does anybody have any ideas on what they might give this person to work on? Whether it be certain yoga poses they could do, whether it be certain mantras, certain just like behavioral modifications. Any ideas? I wrote down some notes.
I think this person would probably need more root chakra balancing poses, maybe.
Yes, beautiful. That is exactly what. That is probably one of the first things that I would recommend for this person, especially because they are a 1-3 profile. And one thing that we talked about a little bit last week with the profiles is that a lot of times in the profiles, people will have, if they're 1-3, they may be really strong or almost excessive in one of those and then deficient in the other one. So her being a 1-3 profile, and I've seen real life examples of this, you can see she's strong and almost a little bit excessive in her solar plexus chakra. She's got a lot of willpower, motivation. But then she's a little bit maybe deficient in her root chakra. She's a little bit disorganized. She needs some help with her finances, that sort of thing. So it's a beautiful, it'd be a beautiful starting place for her, for sure. Anybody else?
Your double laptop in there.
I know. So I forgot that I had notes on here. So I would also, for this person, I would ask her about if she has had any maybe like childhood trauma around the thoughts of like making mistakes, because she's a 1-3 profile. because of that 3 line, a lot of times people with a 3 line, they may have trauma around needing to try a lot of different things and kind of failing in the process in order to discover what actually works. So I would encourage this person, especially she's a manifesting generator. She loves to move. She loves to do things. So I would maybe even suggest something like trying something like rock climbing or trying something like an improv class where it's literally encouraged and you're in an environment where you can fail. And there's like literally, if you're at a rock climbing gym, there's a literal fail safe where if you fall, there's a rope that'll catch you. So starting to develop trust in your ability to fail and still be okay. Or an improv class where, you're in an environment where you're kind of like encouraged to try something new and the environment's safe such that if you totally fall on your face or you totally flop, that it's fine. That would be something that would be really good for this person. Grounding activities like Son already talked about. I would talk to this person about learning how to, or giving herself permission to process through her emotions alone in a safe place. And I would also talk to her too about, are you giving yourself time? Before you are taking on all these new responsibilities at work, are you giving yourself time to go through an emotional wave? Because this person has emotional authority. Are you, when those opportunities are presented to you, are you saying yes right away? Or are you telling this person, this sounds like an amazing opportunity, but let me think about it for a little bit? Because again, a lot of times manifesting generators especially will kind of jump at a new opportunity, and then if they have emotional authority, then after they ride out their emotional wave, they'll kind of learn that it's not really for them. And because they've kind of been saying yes to all these things that should be no's, they're kind of clogging up their sacral energy, so they're getting gut issues, because she said that she had gut issues. And fatigue is a big thing with manifesting generators. If they're taking on all these responsibilities that don't actually align with them, they'll lose their ability to generate that life force energy. So that's what I would look at. And then just as far as like mantras and things, because she's having a lot of fear, the way out of fear is to shift your perspective from what if everything goes wrong to what if everything goes right. What if I do know exactly what I need to know in this situation? That is a big one for one lines, right? They feel oftentimes like they don't have an adequate amount of knowledge. So helping this person see that what she knows in this moment is perfect for this moment, and she'll continue to learn. Also because she has a defined heart center, looking at, looking at worthiness and knowing that she doesn't have anything to prove, and working around that stuff, I think would be really beneficial. And then also people who are in, especially one lines, who have a lot of fear around taking on a new role with their career, or fear around teaching something new, literally doing like success visualizations. So, visualizing that she's doing the new role or she's teaching the thing, and she's visualizing that it's received well by those around her, and that she, that she knows what she's talking about, that she feels good in that situation. So those are just a few things that I would think about. Yeah. And then I had another example, but it's already 2:00, so I'm thinking I'll just actually run through this one really quick, and then we'll get into myofascial release. Okay. So then imagine you have a client who's a 4/6 projector, and this person is split definition with an undefined root center. He struggles with significant apathy around her job, grief surrounding her relationships, fatigue and difficulty sleeping, and occasionally chest pains. This is someone who's very imaginative and analytical, but easily becomes aloof and closed off to her loved ones. This person wants to develop healthy body practices, but can't seem to stick to any one exercise routine. So to me, I would want to, first of all, I would get her set up right away on doing some sort of heart openers. But I would also, because she is a projector and she also has an undefined root center, I would immediately be asking this person, Are you eating enough? Are you sleeping enough? Are you taking care of your own energy? What's your caffeine intake like, right? Because a lot of times people with undefined sacral and undefined root center, they might lean on caffeine a lot of the times as like a crutch, but then it'll burn their energy out more. So developing a healthy relationship to caffeine. And then I would also ask her, because she's a projector and she doesn't always, projectors, we don't always know when enough is enough. I would ask her, what exercise practices has she tried in the past? Has she tried to do a lot of really high intensity exercise? And is that burning her out? Maybe talking to her about, hey, as a projector, you can actually do low to moderate intensity exercise. You can go on a walk. You can do light yoga. You can do that for an hour. You can do that for 30 minutes to an hour every day. And that is, that might be enough for you. See how you feel when you experiment with just doing some lighter activity. How does that feel in your body? And again, sleep is a huge one for projectors. A lot of times we don't sleep enough because we don't have a hard on and off switch with our energy. So we have to develop those practices to unwind at night so that we can get full rest. And then when we are fully rested, we show up better. It's true for every type, but it's especially true for projectors. And then I would, just ask her about her job, and are there any opportunities at her job that she can maybe, pull back her energy a little bit, or if she can even just shift her mindset from what are some things that I have to, what is everything I need to get done at work to, what am I going to learn at work today? How can I receive when I'm on the job? How can I focus on learning and guiding rather than trying to do all the doing all the time? And then, a mantra that I might give to this person is, I trust that life is always providing me with the relationships that I need to evolve and fulfill my dharma, right? Because she's struggling with some grief surrounding her relationships. Really common one with 4 lines. And then just if there's any particular person in her life that she's feeling grief around, or she's feeling like, she's feeling sadness over the thought of losing this person, a great mantra would be, I'm grateful for every moment that I have with, fill in the blank, whether it's my mom, my dad, my best friend, whoever it is. So hopefully those examples kind of give you a taste of how you can tie all these things together: the body practices, the human design, the knowledge of the human design mechanics, and the themes of consciousness. Okay. Myofascial release.
Woo! Okay.
Okay, so this would be a good time for those of you who want to follow along as we're doing it. If you want to take a minute to get yourself in a comfortable position, be on a yoga mat on the floor would be great. Hopefully you're wearing some sort of comfy clothes. You're going to want to grab your medicine ball, your lacrosse ball, and your softer ball, or your foam roll. So Nick and I are going to be showing, for a lot of these, he'll be showing you on the medicine ball and I'll be showing you on the foam roll. And I actually might let him talk through this a lot because my voice is really burning out and he seems like he's really excited and has a lot of energy. So
I'm always excited.
He's literally the hype man. So I might be just
why don't you do it and then I can explain it?
I'll be doing the guiding. I'll be kind of like, yeah, if you want to do that, that'd be great.
Well, the thing is, with this setup, it's going to be hard. Are you going to hold the camera and are you going to get in there with me? Or how do you want to do this? Or do you just want to do it and then I can explain what's happening?
We'll do that one.
Okay. All right.
That way you can man the camera.
Okay. Well, you know what? I might actually move the camera around for this one because why not?
Why not?
Okay.
Okay.
So, let me get in there. Let me get in the frame. Let me explain what's happening. Okay. So, first things first is we're gonna go, and is there a specific order you want to do?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then you do your order, and I'll explain what's happening.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So for just laying down some ground knowledge here. So when you're doing myofascial release, you want to let the sensations in your body lead where you go. And I'm going to just start over. So Thomas Myers, who studied fascia, he talked about how the body stores pain. And there's two types of pain. There's pain coming into the body, there's sensation coming into the body, and then there's pain leaving the body. And a lot of times our bodies, our fascia especially, will store pain and trauma. And it doesn't even know that it's storing pain and trauma, but the body will basically take on all these movement distortions and these postural imbalances to escape the pain or to get away from the pain. So with myofascial release, we say that pain is not a bad thing. We want to lean into the pain, but we want to look for, or you want to feel into sensations that are more like dull and achy pain. We don't want sharp pain, because sharp pain usually denotes something more serious. So that usually means either you're on a bone, you don't want to be on a bone because that's not going to help you, or you're cutting off blood supply. We don't want to cut off blood supply. But dull and achy sensations are going to basically allow the maximal release, because you're basically releasing a larger area of fascia when you're on an area that's dull, that's releasing dull and achy pain. And you want to, when you're doing this, you want to kind of move around at first to see where that area, that painful area is. But then once you find it, you want to hold it for up to 2 minutes, because it actually takes 2 minutes or even longer sometimes for the muscle to start to release. And while you're doing this, of course, you want to take deep breaths throughout. And when it comes to which muscles to focus on first, I always like to start with hip flexors. And we talked about that earlier, why the hip flexors are such a common culprit for postural dysfunction. But then you kind of want to start with like bigger muscle groups. So I start with like my hip muscles, because those are the bigger muscle groups. You start with bigger muscle groups and then you work distally. So then you go down to smaller muscle groups. So we're going to start with hip flexors here. I'm going to show you guys with both a medicine ball and a foam roll.
Go. We're on a slant. Oh.
Pretty much everywhere around here is on some sort of an angle. So
yeah, so like right now, I know you can't see it, but the ground is like this. So we're actually on an angle while we're doing this. So
okay.
We're going to do the best that we can.
Okay, so to get at your hip flexors, so your hip flexors start up here and they go all the way down. So just depending, everybody's going to be a little different. Some people are going to feel it more closer to their knee, and some people are going to feel it more closer to your hip. There's really no right or wrong way. For me, I tend to feel it, it really just depends on the day, to be honest. I'm really feeling it closer to my knee today. So I'm going to find this spot. Yep, that's a good one.
Okay.
And I'm braced on my other leg.
You're going to have to, if you're going to talk, you got to turn this way, towards the mic. Just saying.
Can they even see me from this
yes.
position?
Okay, so I'm going to explain.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, so what's happening is she's releasing this right along here. You're going to basically, the premises of this is to find the spot on your hips on the front side, basically along your quad. So we're talking from here to here, and that being like right at your knees. Okay, so you're gonna find anywhere in this area where it's painful. Okay, chances of you being on a joint or anything are pretty slim with this one, because there's really no joints to be on. It's pretty much all muscle, all fascia, all the way through. So you're just gonna find that spot, and when you find that spot, you're gonna sit on it, or basically keep on it, because this is a spot where you've developed some sort of imbalance, some sort of energy that's stuck within, and we don't know where, we don't know when, we don't know how at this point. But really that's irrelevant, and the point is to find that spot, and it looks like for her it's about the middle.
Yeah.
Right? And for me, it's right at my knee joint actually, and it's actually different for each side. So first we do one side, then we do the other side, but just don't be surprised if it turns out that when you do the other side, it's at the top or it's at the bottom, and it's completely opposite, because that's how the body works. When we're walking, we might develop imbalances because of the ways that we're walking. So if we're walking and we put more weight on our right side, you might be tight a little bit lower down towards your knee, and then your hip joint is going to be out a little bit closer. So it could even be all the way up here by your actual hip flexor. So just know that it could be any spot. And if you do this, sorry, got you with a little bonk. But if you do this for an extended period of time, I'd say, you know, you can do it from anywhere that feels good. I mean, you could do this for hours, but really what we're looking for is about 2 minutes minimum each side, and that could be up to 10, or as long as it takes. And you're gonna actually, for me, I will actually feel the release. You'll feel it. You'll feel it go from here to just a slow decline. Okay, and then when you feel that, that's when we're starting to release. And know that the body and the subconscious mind works in patterns. So if we're going to actually change our bodies, then we actually need to do this consistently. So doing it one time is going to feel amazing, but doing it 3 times is going to feel even more amazing, because then it's going to actually start to release, because it might go back after a certain period of time. And then as you consistently release it, your body realizes, oh, okay, now it's time. Right now it's time to release this. We don't need it. We don't need this pattern for survival, because your body's just trying to survive and adapt. That's what the machine that your controller is. It's meant to adapt.
Yeah, and so real quick, you can also do this with the foam roll. It's basically the same thing. You're going to you want it to run you want it to run perpendicular to your leg. You know, foam rollers are great, but I personally just feel this a lot more like pinpointed with the medicine ball. But
or
again, if you have a foam roll,
you could use this lacrosse balls. Well, if you really want to get in there, you could. If you're getting advanced,
okay,
you could do that. Okay, but at the start, you're going to have a bigger area more than likely than little knots. But you can work whatever works for you, right? Everybody's different.
Yeah, so on the foam roll, because this is a smaller circumference from the medicine ball, at least this foam roller is, you just have to play around with how to prop your opposite leg. So
we're switch sides here.
Yep.
And we're doing the same thing on the other side. And so for her, it looks like it's a little bit higher up on the left side.
It definitely is. And you'll notice that it's sometimes different side to side.
Yeah. So we're going to be here for another minute or so. Yeah. And we're just leaning into the pain, because pain is really perception. So if it feels painful, just realize that that's what you're clearing, that pain, by being on the pain. Because just like when we're healing ourselves or balancing our chakras, if we're feeling it, then we're healing it. So that's what we're doing here, is we're feeling these muscle imbalances, this stuck energy, however you want to say it. It's all really the same thing. And so we're releasing that just like we would release energies for our chakras. So now when we do our yoga poses, we feel like we're limited. We're going to be less limited because we're actually releasing. So sometimes stretching won't get this, because this is kind of like the root of the tree. And then stretching is kind of like, to me, the branches. So you're stretching the branches, and then right here, this is going to be the root of why you're feeling that in the first place.
Yeah, and I think of this too as like, if you have, think about if you
turn
have...
face up, if you can. You can be done with that side.
Okay. Think about if, I'll just actually grab the strap here. I know this would be better if I had like a stretchy band, but imagine this has stretch to it. Because our muscles, you know, they stretch, they expand, and then they contract. So imagine if you have a muscle that has a knot in it, then anytime you try to stretch it, you're actually going to be pulling the knot tighter. And you may be stretching around the knot, but you're not undoing the knot. Versus when you do myofascial release, what you're doing is you're actually releasing the knot itself. So this is really good to do, especially if you're somebody who while you're doing this, you find that you have a lot of painful areas. This would be something great to do before your yoga practice. You know, whether you do this for concentrated amount of like 3 weeks, or you do it for 6 weeks, or you do this a couple times a week just as part of your routine. But it's great to do it before you're stretching. Oh my gosh, my voice.
And also, if this is resonating, give us a heart in the chat. Let us know. Let us know if this is actually helping you, because this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to actually help. So let me know if you're feeling good.
If you have questions.
Yeah, so I just did it for my quads, and oh my god, I didn't even know I had so many trigger points. Oh my god.
It's crazy.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Our hip flexors have so much, they hold so much.
Yeah, and that's the first one, and we got more. coming
Okay.
your way. So for me, my quads were definitely really tight as well. So I feel you on that. So yeah, good.
Okay.
Now you're gonna head to the, where you going, inside?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we're
So-
gonna do our IT bands now. So for this one, you're gonna get on your side. So whether you have the medicine ball under you or the foam roll under you, you can have the foam roll again perpendicular to your leg coming in and out like this. And for this one, again, it's the same kind of thing. You might feel it more closer to your hip, but you want to be careful not to be directly on the bony part of your hip. Okay, you don't want to be right on the bony part. You want to be underneath of it. So you can either, and I already feel it very significantly right here, but for some of you, you may feel it more closer to where your IT band attaches to your knee on the side, especially if
Yeah.
you're somebody who has knee problems, who has had a history of knee problems, or for our physical therapists out in the audience, if somebody has genu valgus, or if
Their knees are caving in.
their knees are caving in, knock-kneed, you'll probably feel it more towards your knee. But again, we want to just be chasing that dull and achy sensation, and I'm definitely feeling it right now.
And it may not be dull and achy. The first couple times you do it, it might actually feel like it's a lot, but as long as you're not near your knee and you're not near your hip, you're past it, because you can feel on your body where your hip is. So you know, and also this is a band, and yes, we are aware that this is a band. So a lot of people say that you don't need to release this because it's just fascia, but this is just like a rubber band, okay?
Yeah.
And if you have that knot in there, then this is where you need to release it. For me, it's right by my knee. It's right on the left side of my quad, like right here. So it could be at the bottom, it could be at the top, depending on the person. So we're gonna hang out here for about 30 more seconds, and then we're gonna head to the other side. But either way, just know that it's gonna be different, because your body, this is like years, okay?
Yep.
This is years, this could be your whole life of imbalances. So this will help you to actually feel good when you wake up. This will help you to actually, want to get out of bed and you're not being like, oh, my body hurts. Like, this is really, for me, this is pivotal. So that's why we're telling you about it. That's why we're explaining it. That's why we're showing you, because I believe this is one of the biggest things that can impact your life when it comes to your physical body.
All right, we're
So,
gonna switch.
yeah, switch to the right side.
sides. Nick also, he doesn't talk about this very often, but he also
What?
went to college for kinesiology, just like me. So
Yeah, I know a lot about
he knows a
this
lot
stuff.
about the body. Okay, so this is what this would look like with the foam roll, just so you guys we can kind of see here.
So yeah, basically this is the contrast with the foam roll, but you're
And
finding
you
it.
You take your other leg and you cross it over, but just so you can see where I'm at here.
Hey, if you are not feeling it enough, then bring this boy up here. Put your other leg for more pressure if you're really feeling frisky today on this afternoon, or in general. It's
But
gonna be
you also want to make sure that the rest of your body
is in alignment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also with this one, I'm also very aware that with this, what you're gonna do is you're not gonna put all your weight on that front. You see how on the front, you want to make sure that when you're here, you're not having your weight here. Your weight is pushing. Your center of gravity is right here.
Right.
So that's what you want to make sure with this
Just like
one.
a balancer.
Yeah, because you're gonna find that if you get a little bit too far up, you're not gonna feel it as much, and balance it, because it is gonna be a little bit painful. So if you need to come up a little bit at the beginning,
Sometimes I go down on my elbow too, just because it's easier to.
yeah. So if you want to go elbow, you can go elbow as well. So, but yeah, this is a really good one for releasing your side on your IT band there. And so specifically, this one we're gonna have, then we'll have done the front. So there is order to the chaos as well. So we'll have done front, then we're gonna do side, and then we're gonna continue on. And also, we will give you a list of these things on how to go through them on your own. And also, you'll have access to this recording. So if you just want to come back to this and watch it again and do it with us, you can do that every day if that's what you feel like doing. And that's what I would suggest doing, to know that you're doing the right things. So I'd say that's pretty good.
Am I good?
And also, as we're switching here, realize what's good for yourself. If you're watching this on the recording, if you feel like you need more time on this, then stay there. Then just stay there for a sec, pause it, because this is about your body. you know, because it's going to be different for everybody. So,
Okay. So now we're moving into piriformis, and those deep hip rotators that we talked about often store a lot of emotion. And that's why, you know, yogis talk about when they're in pigeon pose that they have these emotional releases. These are going to be the same, basically the same group of muscles. So to get at this, if you're on a foam roll, or whether you're on the medicine ball, I'll show with the medicine ball here in a second, you're going to want to take one leg and you're going to cross it over like this, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to position yourself so that the leg that is crossed over like this, you're going to roll your weight over onto it.
so it's like you're opening your hip up by putting your leg on it.
Because think about it. So if you're trying to release the muscles on your on your left side, we're going to put a little bit of tension on them first, and we do that by, you know, rotating them this way. So we're putting a little bit of tension on them, and then we're going to roll over top of them. And then we're just going to roll until we feel it. And I don't really feel it with the foam roll. I have a really hard time feeling it with the foam roll, so I'm going to do it with the medicine ball.
But do whatever works for you.
Yep.
Because I feel it with the foam roller.
Yeah.
So it's just personal.
A lot of people will feel it with the foam roller.
And you can even go
Trying to get in a
to
good
whatever
position.
type ball. If you just want to go to the store and get some different type balls and see what firmness works for you, you know, that's what you got to do.
So on the camera you can see I'm crossover like this, and then I'm kind of rolling over. Yep, and then just, if I roll over just this much, I find it.
So she's on her like exterior. She's rolled out a little bit further. So
And for
know
this
that-
one particularly, like, I will oftentimes feel, it's relatively normal if you feel what's called a twitch response in your muscle. So you might feel that your muscles kind of will contract and relax really rapidly. So just know that that's okay, and that's actually a good sign that it's working. And that's literally what's happening to my to my piriformis right now. And that twitch response is good because basically that muscle has been chronically contracted or turned on, so to speak. And by having a twitch response, it's basically using up all of its energy such that it has no choice but to relax. And that's what we're getting at right here. We're trying to get the
trying
muscle.
to force it to chill. Really, that's what it's about.
Like being comfortable with like releasing the pain that's been stored there.
Yep.
Oh, that's really cool that they did this in yoga teacher training.
Nice.
I didn't know that they teach. Yeah, see, like the yogis know what's up. I feel like the yogis like know so much about the body that's not even talked about in physical therapy school. Yeah,
Alright,
I'm
now
gonna
we're-
switch.
We're gonna go right side here, but it doesn't matter. You can go whichever side you want first. So same thing, crossing.
As I lose my balance on this slant.
Remember, we're on a slant when we're doing this.
He's gonna mention that we're on a slant at least.
At least 3 more times. It's a 5-time minimum that I mentioned. It's a pretty decent one though. But anyways, we're doing the same thing on the right side. And we're just holding and we're releasing. We're getting into the pain. We're finding the pain because pain is our friend.
Oh yeah.
Pain is our friend. You just want to go on these releases and you want to give it a hug. You just want to say, come here. Because when you find the pain, you're not wasting your time. Because what you don't want to do is waste your time. And you're going to waste your time if you aren't actually feeling the pain. So we want to find it and we want to search it out. But we're not going to search and destroy. We're going to search and embrace. So when we embrace it, then we get it into our being and then we release it. We also want to have the intention to let it go because it's also important to have the correct intentions when you're doing this. So you want to focus on just embracing it and loving it and releasing it when you're doing these releases, because this is how it's related to chakras. This is how we're opening our heart to everything. We're connecting everything. And we're doing that through our conscious intention while we're actually doing this.
Sana says, on a side note, please drink a lot of water after this because a lot of fluid exchange takes place. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Beautiful.
Lots of that.
I know I will be drinking a ton of water after talking for 3 hours and
We're also
doing
both
this.
fasted right now. We haven't eaten yet today. That's okay.
Okay. And then I was going to say something. Oh, the other thing, I should have said this at the beginning, but I'll say it now. So when you're coming off of that release, you want to kind of slowly release the pressure too. That also helps because basically you're allowing, if you think about it like this, like when you release the muscle tension, you release the knot, it makes your tissues a lot more spongy, so it's allowing water to come back into those tissues and to hydrate. So if you release it slowly, that allows those tissues to just gradually hydrate, and it's less almost like shock to your system. Okay, so now we're gonna do, we'll do adductors. So for this one, the positioning is a little funky. I don't know how I'm gonna do this here. I may just have to be angled this way.
Do you want me to do it?
So, yeah, do you have an better idea of how to do this on the slant?
Yeah. I got it. So hold the ball for me for a sec.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're moving into our basically our inner thigh here. I'm gonna move so that they can see.
So what we're doing here, and if you're watching this in the recording, just get into it. But we're getting this part right here, okay? So adductors are the muscles that are gonna go, they're gonna clamp, they're gonna help, they're gonna push things in. You ever seen some of those people do the watermelons where they crush the watermelons? That's adductors, okay? With their thighs, but it's really with their adductors. So what we're doing is we're getting in here. We're kind of laying down on the ball, but I'm getting down on my elbow, and I'm having the ball, and again, I'm gonna find that spot. And again, it's actually important, here, I'm gonna move my knee a little bit. It's important to wear the right clothes, because with this, when I'm wearing jeans, it's harder to feel the spot than if I was wearing shorts. So I'm saying wear the least amount of clothes that you can. And that way you're not stretching your clothes, you're not screwing around with it, and you actually get the release. So for me, this is more actually towards the very top is where I feel it the most. So I'm just coming right at that pain and I'm saying, hello, how you doing? And I'm knowing that with this conscious intention, I'm releasing it. And so what I'm trying to do more when I'm in this position is I'm actually trying to get up into it. So if you're really feeling like you're starting to master this, or you're feeling like you're not feeling it enough, then actually come up a little bit more onto your hands. And if you have weak wrists, I'd suggest going with fists. It really depends on where you're at and where your power is, but having your joints in alignment is always a good thing. So it feels like that top part released for me, so I'm actually just going to kind of crawl like a Spider-Man and come back towards the knee. And remember, you're on the side and you're not on the front like the very first one, you're on the side. So I'm going a little bit further down here and I'm finding that spot, and I'm just coming in for a little cup of tea. And so I'm going to stay here for about 15-20 more seconds. And remember that the best thing you can do during these is obviously have that intention, but it's rather to breathe, because breathing is super important for this. And hopefully you could hear that last part, but breathing is super important for this. So you have to remember to breathe in and breathe out. Breathing through your nose in, and depending on where you're at, you could breathe out through your mouth or you can breathe out through your nose. It's really personal preference where you're at with that. So, and we're doing the same thing, but we're switching to the other side. So I'm going to give you the mic here while I get into this.
Yeah, and then the other thing...
Oh. Whoa! We got bees! This is what happens when you're live.
You gotta be just...
You gotta be prepared for
prepared
everything.
for the elements,
So I get on one knee. Let me bring this over here. I'm getting on one knee. And I'm kind of finding the spot. And getting the ball in position. And then when you're in that position, I'm taking my knee and I'm just bringing it back. And I'm kind of sitting down with the pain.
getting the bee off of you.
Okay, smack it. Is it off?
Yeah, it's off now.
Okay.
So the other thing that's really important to know too is that you don't want to necessarily be doing a ton of things to distract yourself while you're doing this, although I know that may be tempting because you really want to distract yourself from the pain. But when you take your attention away, you're basically or let me frame it more positively. When you're focusing on the sensations that you're feeling, it's allowing what we call the neuromuscular connections. It's allowing the connections between the brain and the nerves and the muscles to fully integrate what's happening, and especially one really good thing to almost tell yourself or think about or even say out loud is just repeating, I am safe. I am safe in my body. I am safe to release. I'm safe to feel. Because a lot of times what pain is it's our body's or it's our brain's perception that we are unsafe. And when we can reframe that and, basically tell ourselves that we are in a safe environment, then that a lot of times will do most of the work.
Our theme of consciousness affects how well the releases happen.
Yeah. So again, you can listen to you can listen to music, or you can listen to
and come on out. Anyways, go ahead.
But you can, maybe listening to music would be good, but you don't necessarily want to be watching TV or really getting into a podcast or anything like that while you're doing this. You want to be really focused on what's happening.
Just like if you were clearing shadow aspects of yourself, you want to focus on the shadow aspects of yourself. So you actually clear it. It's the same concept.
Exactly. So we did all the major muscles of the hips, so now we're going to move more distally into the calves.
To the calves. This is a problem for me.
Here.
I've always had tough calves. I like the PVC.
Okay. So you can use you can use the lacrosse ball, or you can also, if you have PVC lying around. I know I didn't tell you guys to buy a PVC, but these are really, really cheap at any hardware store. I think I got that one for $3.
Yeah.
But what I like to do is I'll use the PVC underneath my knees. Can I just show this really quick before you get into it? Or you know what? I'm going to let you do your thing, and then I'm going to show the way I do it.
Okay. All right.
So you can use the PVC pipe, the same concept. You want to just find the area of pain.
Yeah, so what you're doing is you're going to take one side, whatever side you like, and then you're going to take your other leg and say, hey, buddy, and you're going to come over here, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're going to roll with that pressure of the on top leg. You're going to roll until you find that spot that feels frisky. And when you find it, you just, again, you sit down and relax a little bit. You start breathing. For me, my calves have always been an issue. And so I'm focusing on it. And this has been a really big release for me, because I always find myself in that position of the calves are raised a little bit, kind of like this. I find myself kind of up a little bit. So I'm just relaxing into the pain, and I feel it at the very bottom of my calves, but Jess actually feels it more towards her knees. But for me, I found that spot right away. So I'm just sitting here, and you can do it with anything, really. You could even do this with a medicine ball. If you really only had one piece of equipment, most of this stuff you can do with pretty much anything. All you need is some sort of pressure. And as long as you have pressure on the spots that are painful, and you're not near any joints, then you're looking pretty good. But if it's too painful, obviously back it up, right? Just back it up a little bit. And so we're just kind of just settling down here into this spot. And we're just finding that spot, and see, after about a minute or so, that spot released. So then I'm just going to move myself up a little bit more until I find that spot. And so, oh yeah, that's the spot. And if you find that your legs start to fall asleep, I'd say just back it up a little bit. Because my calf, if you push a little bit too hard, you're going to find that you're pushing on some nerves. And if you push on nerves too hard, they're going to get numb. And when they get numb, bad things happen. Just understand that. So we're pushing in on that, and we're going to be here for about 15 more seconds or so. And also realize that with this, one of the major things that we want to relay is that, again, the most important thing, well, there's not really no most important, but just, first of all, switch sides. Just switch sides. Or the other side, cross that leg like you're standing there in the 70s smoking a cigarette. You got your legs crossed. You're feeling good. and you're just finding that pain. But also know that we will not be able to get through all of the different myofascial releases in 1 hour. I mean, this is going to be, a week. It would take, hours and hours and hours for us to explain everything. So know that me and Jess are working on a combination of a couple different things, including this and themes of consciousness for a course where you can actually learn how to do it very efficiently and easily and very much guided, so you specifically will know this is what I should be doing and this is how to do it. And then, so that is coming. So when that comes, I'm sure if you're following us, you'll find out when that. But this right now, as long as if you can just do these lower body ones for now, it will absolutely enhance
These
your
are
life.
definitely like by far the most important ones.
I wouldn't say it's most important because it could be different. Some people could have really troubling upper bodies. So I don't think it's about importance.
Well, I just mean that like these are a lot of the root of our dysfunction comes from these muscles. So these are like these are just a fantastic way to start.
Yeah, that's why we're doing these.
And that's why we're doing these. That's why we picked these ones.
Yeah.
And just know that, even if you never learn any other myofascial, I know I'm being blocked by the mic right now, but if you never learn any other myofascial release techniques, just these by themselves are going to do so much to help your movement, to help your energy, to help your yoga practice, all the things.
Mm-hmm. So that should be good on that side.
Okay, yeah. So I'll
just
show.
wanna hit-
So the way
I
that
just
I
wanna-
do this.
Hold on. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said I just want to hit on the fact. I think we discussed this in the first class that all of the fascia is like connected.
Mm-hmm.
I was having pain in my left shoulder this morning, like my left neck and shoulder, and by doing this, that's gone away.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
It will wrap.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it wraps
I
all the
love
way
it.
through, just like we showed you. So, yeah, thank you for sharing. That's why we do this, because for me, I've always held a lot of pain right here, left shoulder too, actually. So this actually helps my upper body a lot, even without even touching the upper body. So, anyways.
So the way that I do this one, because I have a lot of knee hyperextension, and for those of you, like most people who are honestly attracted to yoga are hypermobile in their joints anyway. So what I do to protect my knees is I'll take the PVC pipe and I'll put it under my knees, or you can take a small towel and roll it up and put it under your knee, and then I'll use the lacrosse ball and I'll find the spot, and I do it that way so that basically what's happening, if I'm doing this, my knee is just extending and I'm feeling a lot of tension in the back of my knee. So to kind of alleviate that, I put something right behind my knee.
Oh, yeah.
And then I can still definitely feel it in my calf. I actually can feel it more in my calf because now I'm not feeling in the back of my knee. You can also do another great use for this is if you ever have any pain in the bottom of your feet. If you're working on a grounding practice, maybe you're working on the muscles in the bottom of your feet are getting sore, your plantar fascia is getting sore, you can also just do like a little release on the bottom of your foot using this.
That feels so good.
Yeah, we won't go through the full thing, but that's something to experiment with.
Mm-hmm.
And then next we're gonna move into the trunk. So we're gonna do abdominals and back.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna do pecs and lats, and then we're gonna be done. So we'll do the back first. So for this one, you want to be careful that you position the ball such that you're not directly on your spine. So you're going to want to lie down on the ball, or you can even do this one up against a wall. You can kind of like squat next to a wall or do like a wall sit and do it that way if you'd rather do that. But I find that I can't fully relax in that position. So I like to do it lying down. So I'll take the ball, and for me, this really, you can experiment with where you feel the tension. Some people are going to feel it more on what we call the multifidus, which is lower. And
You're going to have to talk louder because you're not facing me.
So some people are going to feel it more on the lower part of their back, which is their multifidus. It's like right above their pelvic bone right here. And then other people like me, I feel it more higher up, closer to my rib cage, closer to what's called the Quadratus lumborum.
Woo.
And this is a muscle that, again, if you're having any breathing dysfunction, you might feel it a lot in the Quadratus lumborum. So that's where I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna lie down right here on top of it.
I would suggest just start on the side and work your way in. Don't try and put the ball in the middle because we don't want to get near your spine.
Yeah.
So we want to start at the side and then kind of move around on the ground. You probably have more room than we do, so if you got to move yourself around to find that spot. For me, I always start when I do this. Are you doing low back or are you doing up back?
I'm doing my QL, so I'm closer up to my rib cage.
Okay.
And then what I'll do is I like to have my legs in what's called a hook lying position with my knees up like this, so that if I need to feel it more, what I can do, I have the ball on my right side right now, so if I need a little bit more pressure, I can bring my knees down to that side, and now
You're gonna
I
rotate.
feel it. Definitely feel it a lot. And really interesting side note, for those of you who, I know a few people have splenic authority in human design, and our spleen sits on the right side of our body, is just under the right side of our rib cage, and I will literally, my muscles will tense up on this the right side of my back, close to my rib cage. When I'm not following my splenic authority, I'll literally feel it in that place in my back, and my muscles will like almost guard that area.
Your body tenses up. Because your body knows when you're following your intuition.
Yeah.
And you're following the gifts that you are given.
Just like generators are manifesting generators with sacral authority, how they'll start having like stomach issues when they're not following their authority. For me, it's like I definitely feel it literally in my spleen.
So
It's
point
really
to
wild.
where you are on your back right now. Where is this ball? This ball is
Can you
like,
see it?
yeah, so the ball is like right here. Like right here. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah,
I'm too tall. But we're switching sides now.
So you can kind of see like you want to like feel around, so like you want to feel where your hip bone is and then where your ribs end, and you want to be somewhere in the middle of there. You don't want to be directly on bone, and then you also don't want to be on spine. So you want to be to the side of your spine, but in between those bony areas. And so for me, this is a good spot. I'm gonna find it, lie down on it. You can kind of see, it's a really hard angle to see. Go, and then I'm gonna.
Yeah, you're right here.
No, like so.
You're right here. Basically, for me, I've got a pocket of fat right here. That's kind of where you're gonna start. You know, like for me, I don't know my body type. This is where I hold fat. So you're gonna start like right around here because that's not on your hips. That's actually above your hips. Okay, so you're starting like right here, and you're finding that spot, and then you're working from there. So.
I'm just breathing into it. You don't have to have your hands behind your head, but I don't know, this just feels good to me. I have tight pecs, so it feels good to just release.
Yeah, and it's important to note that when you're doing this, you don't want to continually move. You want to find that spot, and you just want to stay there. Like, that's why I keep saying sit, because we're going to sit down or lay down, you know. The metaphor is that we're staying on that spot, because if we start moving things, we start, you know, getting things going, we don't want to do any of that. We want to just stay right where we are. When we find that trigger point, we're freezing. You know, we're Iceman.
Yeah.
We're straight locked in ice in that spot until it releases or until it feels good. So.
It's okay to shake though.
If you're shaking.
Like I shake it's like you can probably see my legs shaking.
Yeah.
That's normal.
That's just what happens when your body's been programmed a certain way. We're unprogramming, we're deprogramming, and we're reprogramming. We're taking our conscious intention, because a lot of things were put on us from our childhood. We might be under imbalance from our childhood. And so we're getting all the way in there, and we're saying, no, we don't want that no more. We want to feel good. So this is how we're going to start to feel good. In the simplistic way. So,
all right, slowly
that should be good.
Release.
Yeah, so when you're coming out, take it easy.
That's like what I need to definitely consciously think about a lot, because having a defined root center and not having a defined sacral, I'm like, I want to just get it.
I want to do the things. I want to do the things now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, this next one, we're going to want to use our softer ball.
If you have one.
Yeah, so you definitely want to use something that's softer for this next one because we're going to be releasing abdominals and we have a lot of organs and viscera right there, so we don't want to be pressing on it too hard. So this is a kid's volleyball that we deflated a little bit. Soccer balls work well.
I've used the medicine ball. I have, but I'm a big dude. So the medicine
So
ball...
use discretion, I guess.
Yeah, the medicine ball will cover my whole thing and it'll be fine. But just understand, if you're using a medicine ball, you need to bring up the pressure a little bit. It's going to be a lot of pressure because this thing is firm. So just understand what you're using and lean in and go slow into it. So that way when you go into it, you know. So go ahead.
So for this one, you're going to want to find your, what we talked about where your solar plexus chakra is. You're going to want to find the end of your sternum here, your xiphoid process. And we're going to basically start here and we're going to roll the ball down a little bit so that when you lean over onto it, it's kind of releasing up and in, almost like you're Heimliching yourself a little bit, but obviously not with a forceful thrust. This is going to be really, really helpful, especially like you can probably see on me. Like I have a little bit of thoracic kyphosis, and this is actually getting better, believe it or not. It's something that I've experienced my whole life.
She's coming in like this.
So this is going to help basically release the abdominals because the abdominals pull the rib cage in like this. So if you have a kyphosis,
which means
or if you have a kyphosis or a blocked heart chakra, like heart chakra stuff has been again part of my work. So this is really great if you want to open up your heart chakra or if you just have that kyphotic posture.
And this is hitting your solar plexus, so.
Yeah, and again,
you're directly on your solar plexus.
So I mean, this is also goes back to the way that we get our power is like we have to have our own power in order to show love. Like we have to be in a place of taking responsibility and integrity for ourselves in order to really give and receive love. In the same way that our abdominals need to be able to have our abdominals need to have the power to hold our rib cage up and in, to keep our heart in alignment, to keep our heart chakra in alignment.
Yeah.
So this is definitely... Oof.
So you're going to feel it real nice. So like I said, right underneath the ribs is where you're going to be here. And you're going to move around a little bit. And this is going to help with digestion. So if you're feeling backed up, I'd say get down here and work on this. Because this will get those organs moving. It'll get a little bit of movement in there. And that might what we needed if you've got some stuck stuff. And food is energy too, so we're also clearing this. And so she's just kind of pressing down on that. And if you need to come up on a knee, if you need to come up on both knees, depending on what equipment you're using, allow yourself to just adjust. And I like the medicine ball for this too because it covers more area, and that's what feels good to me. But something softer will definitely be easier at the beginning for sure. So,
yeah, I mean, just from protecting your internal organs,
yeah,
I would definitely not recommend starting with a medicine ball.
So no bueno on the medicine ball.
That's just my professional advice.
Guidance pro tip. But if you want to give it a shot and take it easy, do it at your own discretion. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, your own. Proceed at your own.
And it's going to depend on how big your body is as well. What's going to work best for you, I think, and where your imbalances are. So if you're imbalanced and it's in your spleen, you're going to need maybe something smaller to just pinpoint on that area. You might be hitting too many things. So I'm not saying the medicine ball is the best for everything, but it feels good to me. That's all I'm saying. But then again, I'm up on my knees.
I saw a big release.
You just got a big release? Yep, and that'll happen. That's the point. That's why we do this. To get the big releases. And small releases are good too. But we're just hanging out here. And we're feeling good. So, we'll be here for how long you think we've been here? I think we've been
Probably like 20 more seconds.
20 more seconds, 30 more seconds. And then
I feel things moving around in my
you're
intestine.
gonna feel your intestines. You're gonna start to feel your solar plexus, and this is gonna open you up. This is gonna release some of that energy, some of the energy around your ego and what you are related to the world. You're gonna find that might start to release as you release this specific release. So, just using and understanding that you are worthy, and it doesn't matter what happens outside of you. and that your internal reality is important. And that's what this is doing. It's showing you that. It's releasing all that tension of, I might not be worthy enough. And it's opening that center up to the heart,
Right.
which is the heart that tells you that you are worthy. So come on out of that however you want.
Yeah, I always feel so much more aligned after that one.
Good.
Okay, and then moving into last two are going to be the lats and the pecs. And then I also just remembered that I was going to show the pelvic drivers on my hands and knees, so we'll do that after.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Sure.
to get at lats, you're going to want to lay on your side. And so your lats are basically this huge muscle that
Right
comes up and attaches into your shoulder, but they kind of fan out. And the reason why these are so important is because we have a huge band of diamond-shaped fascia that's right in our lower back. And our lats come down and attach to it here, and then our glutes come up and attach to it here. So the glutes and the lats come together, and this is a huge part of like why our shoulders and our hips are connected. So to get at the lats, the easiest way is to kind of go into your, just under your armpit along the backside here. And I like to use the lacrosse ball. If the lacrosse ball doesn't work well, you can also use a softball or a baseball or even a tennis ball will work, just depending on your body type.
So where
Hopefully
you
you
would,
can
if
see.
humans had wings,
Yep.
this is where your wings would be. Will you have wings eventually? Maybe. Don't cut the universe short.
So I like to have whatever one I'm releasing, like the one on the bottom, I like to have this arm straight out because I just tend to feel a little bit more. And then I experiment with like just rolling over the ball. Again, you don't want to be right on your shoulder blade because then you're not going to be releasing. You kind of want to be like right underneath your shoulder blade. So this one always takes me a minute to find, but oh, there we go.
Yeah, allow yourself some time to find this spot. So just getting right here, you're just finding this spot. You know, when you lift your arm up, you're gonna feel that bone, and then it's right on the back side of that bone. And so we're just chilling here again. And this one is kind of a humbling one because you're just in full surrender. You know, you're just like you're a kid again. You're just allowing yourself to release. Because we want to return to that childhood innocence. Because a lot of these things that are stuck within us are not actually our fault, you know? And I say that specifically because when we're children, you know, we don't have a lot of control, but we may have signed up to learn something from that, and maybe we did learn the lesson, but our body hasn't realized that yet. So we're releasing this through our body, and whatever trauma that you might have, just know that, you know, many, 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 many others are experiencing the same type of thing, and props to you for actually doing this. Props to you for actually taking the time to take care of yourself, right? Because you'll be able to help your clients, you'll be able to help anybody way better if you're feeling, you know, if you're feeling good. So this is what we're doing. We are releasing all of these traumas. It doesn't have to be childhood. It can be, you know, in your adulthood. But we're releasing these so that we can live our lives better. And not better in the sense of better versus worse, but more in alignment with the way that the human experience should be, and that should be pain-free. So we're just trying to get to that pain-free place. Not completely free, but just physically feeling well. And so this is going to help your metabolism. This is going to increase, and we're going to switch to the other side right now anyways. And so this is going to help with your metabolism. This is going to help you. You're not going to have to work out as much. Like, you could do this and not really work out that much. And just understand that if you're working out while you're doing this, it's not going to do as much. Because just imagine if you're working out and you're squeezing your lats, you're doing your lat pull downs, you're doing your pull-ups, and you're getting that really tight, right? How are you supposed to release that if every day you're getting more tightness in there? So with this, I would suggest not working out, to be honest with you, because when you work out, you're going to just cause more tightness. And so this in itself is the workout. So instead of doing these, doing these type of workouts, doing your, your normal things that society in Western society has taught you, which is not normal for the human body, and it's more of a soldier type workout, we're going to more releasing naturally. We're going to fixing the problems, not by making the muscles work harder, but essentially targeting the spots that are painful.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that you can't do those workouts. It just means that when you're really, if you really want to focus on releasing these parts of your fascia, that it's really helpful to focus on just doing the myofascial release and then maybe some like light yoga or some light asana or whatever, to give your muscles time to release that and then to heal and rehydrate. Because if you're doing, like, let's say you spend, you want to focus on doing this for like 3 weeks to really release all of these energies that you're holding on to. If you were to try to do, like Nick was saying, a workout, a really heavy, like maybe weightlifting or resistance training workout, but you're doing it with like the same mechanics that you've always been doing it, you're just going to basically re-tighten and re-injure those tissues. So it can be really helpful to like do myofascial release, not necessarily every day, but probably like 5 times a week, and then to focus on that for 3 to 4 weeks at a time to really let yourself reset, and then kind of gradually ease your way back into.
Yeah, just doing as much as you can.
That's what the guy, and we get a lot of like what we know on myofascial release from the functional pattern system, and Nadi Aguilar, that's what he talks a lot about, is like not re-injuring yourself or not reinforcing the faulty mechanics that you had, like giving yourself that time. And he talks a lot, and this guy, Nadi Aguilar, he's like jacked. Like he's really, like you look at him and he's really muscular, but he's like, yeah, I only work out like 12 times a year. Because he just like, he moves so well and so efficiently that he doesn't have to work out. It's really fascinating.
This is a workout.
So the last one that we're going to do is going to be to release our pecs. So again, really good to release our pecs, especially, if we have any heart chakra blockages. Honestly, the best way to do this one is in a doorway. I'm going to show you how to do it if you don't have access to a doorway or something that you can prop your arm up against, because I currently don't right now. But essentially, the best way to do this is to get yourself in the doorway, and you want your arm to be in what we call this goalpost, or this 90-90 position. So I'm in 90 degrees of abduction, and I'm in 90 degrees of external rotation, just like you would be if you were to throw something or what have you. So you want basically your elbow, you want this side of your body to be kind of snug against the doorway, and the lacrosse ball will be right up against the door frame, and you're basically going to lean into whatever area is sore, right through here, like the front of your shoulder, coming all the way down into your chest. You don't want to be right on the bony part of your shoulder, but rolled in a little bit. But if you don't have access to a doorway, the way I do it on my yoga mat is I take a yoga block. I'm going to scoot this over a little bit. I take a yoga block, and then how do I explain how I do this? I lie down, and then I snug the block closer to my body, and then I position the ball on the front of my shoulder, and I have to kind of move around with it a little bit, but now because I've done it enough times, I know exactly where the spot is. So I position myself over, and then I allow my arm to rest this way, and I just roll my body on top of it. And
just putting weight on it.
I'm definitely feeling it right now. So
same concept. You're just going to push your pec. Your pec runs like this across your body. So when you're doing chest flies or you're doing something like that, especially for guys, you're going to find that you get a lot of tightness right there here.
And be really careful with this one. We have what's called our brachial plexus right in the front of our shoulder, which has a lot of blood vessels and nerves. So you just want to be careful. If your arm goes numb, you definitely are on.
You're on some nerves.
You're on some nerves or something. So you don't want to have that. So if your hand starts to go to sleep or you start having tingling, then definitely move probably more inward, closer to your chest, to get off of that sensation.
Yeah. So don't go too high up to where you're up here, because when you get up here, you're starting to get into what she's talking about. So with that, you want to stay like right here and down. Okay? So that could even be anywhere. It could be even down here. It could be below, where you're at. It could be anywhere in this area or that area, whatever side you're on.
Same thing too with the adductors, the inner thighs. There's your femoral artery and vein run through there. So same thing when you're doing those releases. You don't want your leg to be falling asleep, or if you feel like there's a lot of pulsing sensation in your leg, you're probably right on that artery, so you want to move off of it.
Yep, just like I said earlier, if you're feeling like you're falling asleep somehow, or you're feeling some weird sensations, just back up a little bit. And know that your body is complex. And there's a lot of different stuff going on there. And so we're just trying to target the fascia. We're not trying to get near the arteries. We're not trying to get too close to the veins or the nerves or cutting anything off. We just really want to target the muscle and the fascia itself so that it can release. So
I'm just going to switch sides and I'm going to go this way so that maybe it's a different angle people can see.
Yeah. So you're basically laying down on it. Just going down here. If you need something for your head, you need something, some type of pillow.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel free. You got to make it comfortable for your body parts that aren't working. Like your head, you shouldn't be feeling too much pressure in your head. And if you are, then we need to fix that somehow. So, but yeah, we're just chilling. And after this release, we pretty much nailed it. Congratulations. You just did your body a huge favor. And so now we should be better able to stretch. We should be better able to move daily. Like your walking should be easier. You should be less sore when you do things. If you're out in nature like we are and you got to chop some wood, you're going to be feeling less taxed. You're just going to have more stamina.
So you're going to be more efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be more efficient. You're going to move better, right? You're going to move in more effective patterns, however you're moving daily. And so there's so many benefits to this. And also you're going to work out. I mean, you should be getting bigger muscles. And just on that specific thing, if you're looking to get jacked, hey, this is going to help you along that journey. And if you've been looking to get jacked for a while, like I was for a long time, and you realize that, oh, wait, I can actually get jacked. And not that getting jacked matters, because it really doesn't. I mean, we know that. I'm just using that as like as a metaphor. But really, if you just want to increase your strength, or if you want to look a certain type of way, this is going to help. So, and you can do that by doing the opposite of working out. You don't even have to specifically work out. How fantastic is that? You don't have to go and push yourself till you feel like passing out. You can just do it like this. Isn't this more the peaceful, the yogi, the human design, the natural type way? I think so. That's why I love this, because you're actually chilling. I feel very much in harmony. You can make this whole thing a meditation, and you can count. I would count this as a meditation. If you're doing this daily, this is a meditation. So you're gonna do some nerve stuff.
Okay, so I just wanted to show. I don't know the best angle. We'll go this way. Okay, so earlier we were talking about the sacral chakra and like helping people move their hips, especially if they never crawled as a baby, or they had trauma around their sacral chakra when they were a toddler. So when you're in your hands and knees position, you can have people move side to side, and I say this is like the tail wag, and that's how you know that you're actually getting movement in your hips, because what a lot of people will do if they're really out of touch with their hip movement is they'll just like shift over onto their hands. So you can cue these people to keep their shoulders over their hands.
Cue yourself.
And you're just moving your hips. So you go side to side, and then you tuck your tail and then come up towards the ceiling, kind of like a cat-cow. And then you can also, you can rotate or do like little circles.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Look at that, 3:05. We did pretty good on time.
We nailed it.
He was like, this is only going to take 2 hours. And I was like, no, it's not. It's going to take the full time. All right. So
we did it.
We did it, everybody.
That was your 4-week course on mastering your energy to the best we could fit into 4 weeks. I hope that I added value to this experience, and I don't know if that was part of the equation for you, but I hope that my presence allowed you to learn something and take something from this course. I'm super grateful to be able to relay this information to you, and I'm excited to see what you can do with it. And so let us know if this is working. If you have questions, DM us on Instagram. I mean, we're going to be around, so just know that throughout this course, I think your intention was to master your energy, and we did that through a very much human design lens, but with this part of the course, we tried to take it out into the physical as well.
Yeah, so so we basically journeyed from the energetics of our DNA all the way out until how that affects our physical body and how we can release energy in our physical body and how it works both ways. We can look at our mechanics and we can release energy through studying, through our minds, through studying how our energy works, and then we can also release energy through our bodies, through the physical, and how both of them work interchangeably. So hopefully you guys learned a lot. We'll take probably 10 minutes or so. We'll stay on for 10 minutes if you guys have questions, but
yeah,
otherwise, thank you guys so much for being here. We love you all. This has been so fun. This is a huge dream come true for me to be able to integrate all these different things that I've learned over the course of, being a physical therapist and a human design teacher. So it's been fun.
It's been really real. And I think we nailed it. I think we hit a big part of how the body works, and in many different dimensions. So hopefully those that are specific profile lines found that maybe I explained it a certain way and maybe she explained it a certain way for different profile types, and that helped. So
love you, Sana and Candy. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Sana, for offering your wisdom as well. Sana is also a physical therapist, so it's nice to have her lens as well, and Candy as our reflector.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
Woo! Good stuff.
All right, well, if there's no questions, then we're gonna head out, but here, soak in this beautiful view one last time.
I wanted to ask you, should we expect some slight bruising? If you're doing it the first time?
Yeah, definitely. Bruising is definitely common and nothing to be concerned about. And a little bit of also muscle soreness, as though you just did a tough workout, is also pretty common.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, thank you, Kirsten. Thanks for tuning in all the way from, I think you said Switzerland or something. Yeah. I know that it's really late for you, so thank you so much for being here. Yay!
Nice.
All right. Well, happy winter solstice, age of Aquarius, Merry Christmas, happy holidays, all the things.
And if you're feeling some energies, just know it's in the air.
Definitely in the air. I'm going to go probably take a nap right now. Projector things. All right. Love you all.
All right, guys.
Bye.
All right. We think we nailed it, mate.
I think so.
All right. Thank you, guys. Whoever's watching the recording, we'll see you when you watch this again, right? Because you're going to do the myofascial release again, right? Because you want to heal those spots. All right. We'll see you soon.